Good afternoon and welcome to Women in Engineering and Technology 2022. This is our 6th year running this event, and I'm amazed that so many people have registered and taken an interest in this year's event, with over 1,500 students and graduates from STEM backgrounds wanting to be a part of today's event. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Amanda Thomson. I'm the founder and owner of Campus Media. Campus Media is a youth experiential marketing company. We work with employers and institutions to get the messages across to improve employability. So diversity and inclusivity is at the heart of what we do. Many of our campaigns, like the one here today, is focused on just that. We're here today to improve employability and empower you to go forward, be bold, get over that last hurdle and pursue a career within STEM. So why is it important to have more women working in STEM? Physically, we are very different to men, but for centuries, the world around us has been engineered by men and subconsciously for men. So even still, crash test dummies are based on the male physique of 1.7 meters tall and 76 kilos in weight, which is quite a lot bigger than the average woman. We also know that the first woman in space, Valentina, in 1963 went into space wearing a suit designed for a man. She sized down. I think she was in a small men's suit. It wasn't until only 3 years ago that there was a spacesuit designed and engineered for female astronauts. And again, without having women within these vital industries, society just won't change, the world just won't evolve to be all-encompassing for both men and women. There are also differences in our logical thinking patterns, typical behaviour in which takes us to the answer in a different route to our male counterparts, and our emotional intelligence is different as well. So it's vital for us to develop the world and invent, engineer and advance technology together with both women and men in mind to build a better future and a better world for everyone and every living thing in it. Companies across the globe, and the 8 companies joined with us today, are striving to have more women working within their engineering and technology departments because they also realise there's the greater need to make radical positive changes requires both men and women at the heart of these industries. So this is exactly where you come in, and thank you again so much for joining us today. The whole purpose of this event is to inspire you and empower you to be the next role model. There's a particular theme this year, and it's all about paying it forward. You are going to hear from some amazing trailblazer speakers who will talk to you about the importance of being a role model to help educate younger girls still in the classrooms on what technology is, how to be an engineer, and that they can see exactly, oh, I could be just like her. And that's really vitally important. We're seeing lots of changes in the classroom now with STEM teachers being women as well. We've also got some men joining us, which is amazing because you are going to play a vital role here as well. More men are needed to be allies for the women in both the classroom and the boardroom. So thank you so much for joining us. Please, everybody, take part in the session. This is a very interactive event. We'd love to hear your comments and answer the polls that are going out throughout the whole event. I'd like to say a huge thanks to LSBU University, London South Bank University, who are our fantastic host today. We're here in the London Hub building, which is brand new, just opened in the summer, and it's fabulous. We're also joined by some of their STEM students, but notably why LSBU is such an important partner. We can see on the screen here that LSBU was one of the first universities to offer engineering courses to teach women engineering. And in 2022, they celebrated 100 years of teaching engineering, which is fabulous, teaching women engineers. They also offer over 100 different courses across engineering and technology at all levels, from apprenticeship through to postgraduate. So on the screen now, you can see the event schedule. We've got a really packed lineup today. So many amazing speakers. We've got our partner companies from March 8, Text You Can and STEMAZING, and we have 8 employers joining us here today who will be each delivering their insights and answering your questions live whilst the sessions are going on. So please don't be shy, ask your questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. Please pop it in the chat, and there are employers and graduate representatives from them organisations poised, ready to answer your questions. We've also got, in partnership with STEMAZING, a fabulous competition that will be running. I'm going to just give you a few little details about it now, but all will become clear when you hear the session from Alex Knight from STEMAZING. We have got 6 places to join the STEMAZING Academy in the spring. It's a 4-month session, and it's starting in March. It's a 2-hour commitment per week, so very manageable within your studies, and it's a fabulous opportunity to learn how to be a role model and how to be a mentor to younger children and go into the classrooms and really give back and empower them whilst empowering yourselves to be role models. So the deadline for applications for this is the 16th of October. It's very simple to enter. You simply send us an email at hello@campusmedia.co.uk, and that's in the chat right now. Tell us what course subject you're studying, when you graduate, but more importantly, why you would like to take part. And then we'll be announcing the winners on the 16th of October. I would now like to pass over to our first speaker and our sponsor, BT. We have Zoe Webster, who's an Artificial Intelligence Director at BT. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk on behalf of my organisation, BT Group. Really excited to be talking to lots of future role models coming up through engineering and technology. So I've been invited to talk about my journey, my career so far in this field. So it's going to be a bit of a personal one, so bear with. But I'll try and draw out some lessons that I've learned along the way. So a bit about me. We talk about work-life balance quite a lot. So at work, I'm AI director at BT. But in my life, I have other perspectives on technology and engineering. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I am a school governor as well. So I've got a perspective on how technology may impact children in the future and how they can harness it and how they can become role models in the future. Random fact, I also try and get away from technology sometimes and spend some time on my allotment. So that's me, and I'm balancing those all the time. So how did I get into technology and engineering? I loved maths from a very early age, and I delved into my dad's Isaac Asimov books. I don't know if anyone's been reading any of those, some classics, but it got me thinking, reading about robots, what really is the difference between people and robots? And that got me thinking and interested in this field, how we can build machines that might look and sound like people, and what does that mean for the engineering of that? So that was kind of in my background. I started doing A-levels, doing maths, but I was doing politics and going into that direction, had a last-minute change. And actually, the importance of role models at an early age when I was 16 was that we had a computing department at the sixth form college, and it was led by women, and that was actually very, it's not particularly common, but they heard about this female student looking for another A-level, and I got grabbed, and I'm really glad I did, because that took me on the path to learning about computing more formally. So then I ended up doing computer science as my first degree. Very interesting, got me thinking more about how these machines work, and also, very employable. That was very important to me, so it ticked many boxes. So that's how I got into this kind of technology and engineering. So talking about the kind of academic foundations that I focused on, I did that degree. I was really trying to keep my options open in terms of hardware, software, theory, practice, and I was able to do that in the course I took. I also did a year in industry, which I would recommend. That gave me a great insight into the world of work and how things work there. I was able to work in software testing, software development, and software strategy as well. So getting to learn about how different parts of that corporate world operated. But then coming back to AI, I was able to specialize in AI in my third year, which is what I did. I took a range of courses in things like machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision. So I got to go back to that early love that I had been developing. I was then offered a PhD place, and I could have taken it, and that would have been a straightforward route. But it wasn't quite in the area of AI that I was most passionate about. So I decided I wouldn't go for that. And actually what I wanted to do, and I think this has been important throughout my career, is to look at kind of diversity of perspectives and look at different disciplines that are aligned with this. So I wanted to do more in philosophy and psychology, for example. And so I did a master's degree down at Sussex to just kind of broaden my perspectives on AI going forward. And I think that's something I would recommend, is looking at related disciplines to find out, to get those new perspectives on technology and engineering. So that's what I did. So then I was at that point itching to get into industry, to start applying AI to the real world and to real world problems, as it were. And actually I was really fortunate. I was able to get a place at what was called DERA, is now Kinetic, kind of span out of that. So many of you may have come across that organisation. But it was very much at the cutting edge of AI at that time, super exciting to join. And I knew I would probably have the opportunity to do a PhD if I wanted to do that a bit later. So while I was there, actually, I was doing my work day to day, and I became good friends with what I call a fellow female traveller in this space, someone with a bit more experience than I did in AI. But together we recognised there was an opportunity, a bit of a gap in capability in AI that we wanted to address. And that in particular was around explainable AI. So AI, most of you will know about, but quite often it's really important to understand what the AI is telling you, what it's learnt about the world before you start deploying it. And so we felt that was an area we could have done more in, and so we actually developed that ourselves. So again, away from the projects we were working on, we were taking those opportunities to do something a bit extra. That turned into quite a stream of work and activity, and it allowed me in my career to start doing line management and start coaching and supporting others. So that was super interesting, and I'm really glad that I took that opportunity. It wasn't handed to me, it was something that I took, but with a fellow female traveller, as I mentioned. And I was able to deploy AI across a range of industries, health, retail, cybersecurity, and other areas. While I was there, I did my PhD in user modelling, so into personalisation, and that was fantastic. And I became a chartered engineer as well. So I was able to get that practical real-world experience as well as building up my qualifications as well. And then before the next part of the story, I did spend a few months at SEA, Systems Evaluation and Assessment. That was an SME, a small, medium-sized enterprise. So going from a big company to a much smaller one was a really interesting time. I learned a lot from that. It was brief, but it gave me that useful experience about how a different company operates and how AI fits within that landscape. So then I made quite a leap into the public sector at that point, which is a bit of an odd one. But there was something called Technology Strategy Board that had been spun out of what was then Department for Trade and Industry. It was about helping businesses to harness technology and innovation for their growth. So I joined this, I have to say, not entirely sure what it was about, but I was the technologist for ICT. So I was able to bring what I knew, but to importantly learn much more about the wider economy, the wider benefits of this technology, and the wider opportunities. So in that role, I was there, it's now Innovate UK, part of UK Research Innovation. So funds a lot, lots of funding from that organisation into universities, for example. So many of you would have come across that. But I started in the very early days, and I was there for 13 years. And during that time, I had multiple roles. When I left, I was Director for AI and Data Economy. But there were lots of things I learned in that job, kind of learning by doing, around things like how you develop a strategy. How do you start that? How do you consult with people? Who do you consult with? How do you structure it? How do you get your messages out? We run grant funding competitions, so that was something I was part of right from the beginning, how you scope a competition, how it's going to meet the needs of micro companies, large companies, everyone in between. Universities as well, so that was a huge experience for me. The workings of Whitehall, so how government works, it was new to me. I hear about it on the news, but getting much more in depth in how decisions are made, how you brief ministers, how they make their decisions, and how we become part of that. Stakeholder management. In any job in technology and engineering, you'll have stakeholders. You'll have people whose needs you need to meet. You'll have people you'll be working with, and people are going to be your customers. So you need to understand and learn as you go how to manage those stakeholders. They'll often have conflicting needs, and you need to work through that. So that was a really useful exercise for me there. How to develop a business case. If you want more money to do something, you want money from the Treasury, how do you make that case? So that was something else I learned as well. And in technology and innovation engineering, we've always got to compete for funding from a range of other areas. How do you go about that? How do you position the power of technology and engineering for your benefit? And then the broader technological landscape. I was in ICT and AI, but I got to work around manufacturing and 3D materials. So 2D materials as well as 3D ones. Biosciences, synthetic biology, a whole range of different technologies I had no idea about really before I joined. But that gave me opportunities to find out, again, how AI relates to those technologies. So using AI to discover new materials or new pharmaceuticals, for example. I was able to relate my kind of first love with those other areas. And also broader industry as well. So one of the jobs I took, and I moved sideways, was into manufacturing. I led the manufacturing team for a while. I had no manufacturing background, but it meant I was able to show I wasn't dependent on my technological background, my technical expertise. I had other broader skills I could use. But that gave me lots of insight into how manufacturing works alongside the digital sector. Different time horizons, and meaning of value. So what do we talk when we're kind of adding value, generating value from technology? What does that mean? Is it new revenues for companies so they can grow, reducing costs, employing more people, innovating more to generate that growth, all sorts of ways that we can look at value. And different time horizons. We're looking at the here and now, we're looking at 2 years hence, or we're looking at 20 years into the future when we need to understand what the UK technology landscape is going to look like in 20 years and how we can prepare for that. So, as I said, there was a couple of critical things I learned there. One was, do you think about moving sideways to broaden your expertise, to show that you're not dependent solely on the technology that you know about? I think that's really key. And then when I joined a director role, I became much more involved in issues around diversity and inclusion, for example. So looking at our gender pay gap, looking at things like complaints, handling. We didn't get many, thankfully, but actually being able to understand people's perspectives and make sure representing the organisation well was really, really good experience for me. So I was there for 13 years and I joined BT in November 2020. I am responsible for building and growing a team of experts in the area of data science, so it's slightly broader than AI. And that's to accelerate value generation, so that word again. But, for the bottom line of the business and for our customers, there is value to be had using technology and engineering more quickly, bigger, better, faster. So that's what I'm doing. I have built a team. I'm still growing that team, still looking for talent to join us. And we support the business right across the board, from our consumer business right through to the kind of multinationals that we might work with and companies much smaller than that. So right across our business, we're there to support them. And what we're looking at is how AI, how data science can help our customers and our business to generate more value. Diversity and inclusion is really important. Amanda was talking about this earlier. In AI specifically, I think bias is something we need to be incredibly mindful of. Everyone's probably heard and read news stories about, where bias has crept into AI, and it's what we want to avoid. And I think you can only do that if you're inclusive of everyone who may be impacted, and you have a diversity of ideas and thought, a diversity of perspectives that are actually helping you to develop that AI and to deploy it. So that's super important. I'm really passionate about that. And that comes into everything we do around recruitment and retention, and looking at supporting that talent. So in this role, I'm able to take a wider view of that, making sure that we've got a good representation of women in our workforce as well. I do a lot in ethics and responsible AI. So again, making sure we address that potential bias or potential problems. We can do all this very safely. We just need to make sure we think about that consciously right from the start, which is something we absolutely do. But I think diversity and inclusion is at the heart of that. And I'm still learning. I'm learning loads about what it means to go through a digital transformation in a big brand. Working with some fantastic colleagues at the cutting edge of this. And so, yeah, super exciting. I'm still learning, still loads to go. So very briefly, in terms of what I've learned so far, if I think about my journey through engineering and technology, there are some things I wanted to bring out in case they were useful for anyone listening. I think throughout my career, right from that start, I was looking at the first stages of my academic foundations. I was really keen to to become not just deep, but broad in my perspective, to look at other disciplines like philosophy and psychology and other things, to understand how AI fits within that broader context. And I think that's really important. I think it makes a much a more rounded technologist, a more rounded engineer if you do that. And I think doing that consciously is really useful. I want to say it's not replacing depth in your technology, it's kind of alongside that. So sometimes it's necessary to move sideways. I think many people in their career can be nervous of that, but I think if you're doing it consciously, because it's going to give you that additional perspective that perhaps no one else has in your space, then it's definitely worth doing. I would think, again, consciously of the upside. When you're asked to do a challenging task, and I've been asked to take on things that, have been described as impossible, or, like a hospital pass, do you think, actually, is there an upside to this for my career? Actually, am I going to get that new perspective? Am I going to make new contacts that could be really helpful? Am I going to learn those lessons? And I think, you've got the option of just saying no if it's too difficult, and don't be shy at doing that, obviously. But actually, if you can think of those upsides, don't be shy. The chances are no one else is going to step into it. No one else is going to have that courage. So give it a go. But make sure you know what the upside is before you go. And I would say also check with people you trust. Having those conversations with other women, other people, to kind of check in with them and say, does this make sense? Is this upside actually potentially there? or am I just doing something that no one else wants to do? So it's always worth checking with someone you trust. Communication is incredibly important in technology and engineering. You need to be able to tell a story to take those stakeholders with you. So whether that's your customers or your colleagues, your manager, you need to be able to tell that story about why you need to invest in this way, in this technology, the risks there may be, the opportunities there will be, and where it's going to go. So I would also invest that time and space in learning how to communicate written and verbally, etc., to make sure that you're able to make the best case. And finally, kind of thinking back about how important it is, I think, for women and other allies to kind of be close to each other. There was a phrase an ex-colleague of mine used quite a lot, which was hunting as a pack. Don't try to do everything alone. Do kind of, particularly with other women, get together. I was involved in a peer learning network at a previous organisation where women were able to gather together every 6 weeks or so and actually talk about some of the challenges and opportunities we faced as women in the industry. And I found that super helpful. We kept those the times we had together sacrosanct, nothing else would crash it. And it was actually really helpful understanding how we're all very different but facing very similar challenges. And we're able to discuss ways we could all overcome those challenges or actually reach out and take those opportunities that are there for us. So I would say where possible, or reach out to others at the earliest possible opportunity and explore ways that you can hunt as a pack together. So that's it from me. It's been a pleasure talking. I hope you found that useful. I'm now going to leave you with a video from BT, which talks a bit more about the career opportunities that are available.
The grad culture at BT Group is extremely inclusive, friendly and full of opportunities. It's been incredible to meet different graduates from different business areas as well as different cities.
So everyone has this idea that corporate life is sort of you're in your box, 9 to 5, it's all horrible, but not at BT. It's lovely. It's lovely working here. We are given ownership of projects and we are entrusted with things and we're sort of thrown in at the deep end, but there is that support there for if everything goes wrong.
BT Group is formed of a number of different businesses, including BT, EE, PlusNet and OpenReach. The opportunities are quite literally endless.
So one thing I did not know about BT Group before I started was their role in completely running and organising the 999 call centres on behalf of the NHS. Now that I know a wee bit more about that, I'm incredibly proud to say that I work for BT Group.
So I ended up in technology because I worked in the NHS for a few years, and then I heard about BT doing new innovation on 5G ambulance, haptic feedback gloves, and I found it really, really interesting.
We work with people all around the world because I've worked with clients in Sydney, Australia, in America, in Hungary. I've worked with them all over the globe.
As a technology grad, I've had the opportunity to work on VR. What I thought is great about what we're doing at BT is we're looking at ways to make it practical rather than just using it on games.
You'll be able to go to pretty much any role and have so much learning through different development ways.
As a graduate, there is a buddy scheme whereby you can partner with different graduates in years above you. But when you're actually in BT, we have a mentorship programme, and that's such a good thing to utilise because it allows you to sit down with senior leaders and essentially learn about their career journeys through BT.
The transition from university into corporate life was extremely challenging at times, but BT Group has a lot of resources where they will help support you, if that's from employee assistance or if it's through speaking to your managers, as well as there's a lot of people networks at BT Group. I'm the grad who ensures that all customers have the best experience in our retail stores.
I am the grad who's making a new work culture with new collaborative technology.
I am the grad who finds new ways to connect with customers and drive them through the digital transformation.
I'm the grad who's helping people connect for good through new technologies.
I'm the proactive grad who always pushes for an inclusive culture.
Thank you so much, Zoe, for being our first speaker. It was fabulous to hear those insights as well, and I totally echo the hunting pack. Find your group, your supportive community is really important. There's going to be more on that coming up. But I'd like to move straight over now to our next Employer Insight session with Mott MacDonald, and we are joined over there by Riya Taylor, Celine Zins, and Hugh as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. We're really excited to be here today and just to provide like an insight to Mott MacDonald. So just to start off with, I just want to sort of like introduce Mott MacDonald and what we do as a company. So we're a global engineering management and development consultancy with the purpose to sort of improve society by considering all the social outcomes as well as the things that we do that impacts the environment that we work in. So I just want to play like a video to sort of explain this a bit further.
What inspires and motivates us in what we do every day?
We've always been driven by a passion to make people's lives better. Right back to our founders 120 years ago, who pioneered access to clean, plentiful water supplies and developed public transport, making it easier for people to live and work in cities. That spirit lives on in our purpose today.
To improve society by considering social outcomes in everything we do, relentlessly focusing on excellence and digital innovation, transforming our clients' businesses, our communities, and employee opportunities.
As a matter of principle, we believe nobody should be disadvantaged, and we know from experience that inclusive projects deliver the best results for everyone, our clients too.
That's why social outcomes, accessibility, inclusion, empowerment, resilience, and well-being are at the heart of our purpose.
At Mott MacDonald, we use the breadth of our expertise to see the connections between the projects we're helping to deliver and the world around them. How the infrastructure, services, the natural environment, businesses and people work together to maximize the benefit for all.
This is where digital innovation comes to the fore. Combined with deep subject knowledge, our digital skill set helps us, our clients, and partners to address old challenges better and solve new ones. To see problems and possibilities more clearly, to be more agile, efficient, and effective.
It's all powered by relentless focus on excellence. Excellent people, systems, and technology all supporting innovation and creative solutions. All centered on improving society.
That's why we're here.
So we're really proud to take like the projects that we do as Mott MacDonald. So with over like 150 years of heritage, we've done a lot of projects around the UK and also around overseas as well. Within like the last 5 years, we also won 525 awards. So that's including like with over 16,000 global employees. So with that many people, we've worked in like different sectors. So that includes advisory, built environment, as well as transportation, energy, international waters, international developments and waters. That also includes like our digital areas as well as environmental and sustainability. So in terms of like our graduate roles and opportunities, it's all available within those sectors that I mentioned. So what makes our graduate roles like sort of stand out is that we sort of make sure that you gain exposure towards those exciting projects and sort of learn from industry experts. You'll also be enrolled into our 3-year graduate program called Exert Your Future, so sort of like complements your professional development. So from day one, you will get support from like your buddy as well as your mentor support, and so to like gain that relevant professional qualification, whether that towards chartership or just another type of industry that you want to go into. We also have like a wide range of network for our ECPs to make sure that you connect with your peers and sort of help build that connection within the business. So within our graduate roles, we do have a range of paths available. So that includes like fire engineering, environmental, as well as like different management consultancy. So we have a range in terms of like engineering, or if you want to go like into business as well. So I'm sure there's like something for you, and we recruit from like a wide variety of disciplines. As what you will get when you join us as a graduate, you get like a biannual salary review. So that means that your salary gets reviewed every 6 months, if depending on your performance level. We also make sure that we do like extensive research on like this salary to make sure that the salary you received is in line with the industry standard. We also have a dedicated learning and development team to sort of help support your professional development to make sure that it's what you want to do, as well as like your career aspiration. So each offices, we also have a sports and society club, which means that you get to enjoy like fun activities as well as like events around the offices to make sure that you connect with other people, whether it's from different teams or different location as well. So we also make sure that we see each other as friendly, and like that promotes that culture as well. We also have placements, 2 types of placements. So that's the industrial placement, which is 6 to 12 months, and a summer placement, and that is the 8 to 12 weeks, and then that's also available in the sectors that I've mentioned. So that's in the digital or the engineering sectors, or even in the management consultancy. So that's also there. And then in terms of like our recruitment process, I'm just going to play this little video that sort of explains how you could apply.
To apply to our early careers vacancies, head over to our website to submit an online application to the scheme you are interested in. Our application consists of 4 stages. The first stage of our application process is an online strength-based assessment, which is a combination of scenario-based and numerical reasoning questions. The assessment is not timed, so please take it at your own pace. Once you have successfully passed the strength-based assessment, you will be progressed to the second stage, which is filling out your application form. This should take around 1 hour to complete, and once submitted, is reviewed by the Early Careers recruitment team. If your application is successful, then the third stage is an interview with the actual team who are recruiting. The fourth and final stage would be an offer to the successful candidate. We look forward to receiving your application.
So this sort of like recruitment process applies to all our graduate roles, as well as our summer interns and industrial placement. It's the same process. If you wanted to view like our full roles that's available, do visit that website that's on the slides, and that sort of like gives you a bit more details and a bit more information on like the roles that we offered. So I'm just going to pass on to my colleagues to just going to give a bit of like insight on what the roles are and how they found working for Mott MacDonald.
Hi, thank you, Hugh. I'm Riya Taylor. I am a building physics engineer at Mott MacDonald. I've been in the company for almost 4 years now, and I joined as a graduate in January 2019. One thing that I will highlight about joining Mott is that their early careers team are very flexible and very accommodating. Even when I applied for the role, I wanted to defer it because I wanted to go traveling for a bit, and they were more than happy to accommodate that. So if you ever think about applying, which I say you should, don't feel that you're fully obliged to enter in the year that your black and white document says to do so. Another thing is, I joined as a graduate building services engineer, which is different to my title right now. So I was an electrical building services engineer for 1 year. I realized that it wasn't entirely for me. The role didn't match up with my degree at all, and even though I was lucky that I got the opportunity to discover what electrical building services was, I didn't have the passion to carry through with it. At that point, I kind of panicked. I was like, oh my God, I've just joined a new company. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't even know the basic physics to the role. But luckily, all I had to do was talk to my line manager, and I was able to move into a role very swiftly, very easily, that matched up to my degree so much better. And that's how I got into the role that I'm in today. So a daily work life for me is thermal modeling, energy analysis, carbon management and optimizing buildings through active and passive measures to ensure that the systems and the fabric are as energy efficient as possible, which is very important in today's day and age, obviously. But yeah, so I graduated in 2018 from the University of Nottingham. I did architectural environmental engineering. And then, yeah, I joined the company just a year later, so about 6 months later. And I have no regrets ever since.
Hi everyone, I'm Celine Zins. I'm a digital consultant at Mott MacDonald as well, and I joined as a graduate as well in January 2021, so just coming up to 2 years now. So I'm going to talk a bit about my journey first to becoming a digital consultant, just because I work in an engineering company and I don't have a technical background, so I'll talk a bit about that. So I studied economics at university mainly because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was good at maths and I liked philosophy and I liked reading, so I thought I'd learn a bit about how the world works. And then following on from that, my degree taught me a lot about the importance of infrastructure for economic development, and I wanted to delve into more sort of the tech side of things, so smart cities, smart planning, and things like that. So I went on and did a master's in international development, and then in my final year of that master's, I started applying for different jobs, and I had 3 main requirements for the job that I wanted to look for, or that I wanted to build my career in. I wanted to work in the construction sector, in the built environment sector. I wanted to work in something related to tech and digital, and I wanted to work in something sort of policy related, or something where I knew that I would be having a positive, sustainable impact on people and planet. And the digital team at Mott MacDonald sort of combined all 3 things for me. So what does my day-to-day look like as a digital consultant at Mott MacDonald? We work on 2 main areas. We work on digital transformation and on information management. So what does that mean? In terms of digital transformations, I help clients in the water, transport, and energy sectors implement digital. So often when we talk about digital, we mainly focus on technology. We try and talk about people and processes behind the technology as well. So looking at, that's great if you want to implement all of these smart sensors to collect data on the buildings that you have, but do you have the processes in place as an organization to actually make that implementation successful? And what about the people? Do your employees have the skills that are necessary to use that technology? So looking at sort of upskilling and reskilling strategies, and sort of how can an organization change its culture to embrace digital as well. So that's on the digital transformation side of things. And then on the information management side of things, we talk a lot about smart cities and smart sensors. What does that really mean? I think it's clear to say that our cities aren't currently smart. It's still a lot of planning needed in terms of how do you collect that data that's needed to be processed and be analyzed and be turned into information that can then be turned into insights to make decisions on how a city should be planned. So we help clients, again, in water, energy, and transport, sort of sort out that data. How do you manage that data and turn it into information, with the sort of final objective being digital twins of the built environment and smart cities, hopefully. So in terms of the graduate scheme at Mott MacDonald, I think one of the main reasons that I joined the company was because the group places social outcomes and social value and sustainability at the heart of its projects. So I really think that every project I've worked on is the sustainable impacts of the projects are something we explicitly look at and talk about as a team, and that's one of the reasons why I really like the projects I work on. That's all from me.
So that's everything we've got for Mott MacDonald in terms of like the insights that we wanted to sort of like come across. Thanks. Back to you, Amanda. If you've got any questions in this chat room or in the room.
Thank you so much. That was really great insights, actually. It's quite interesting to hear that you were able to switch your scheme that you were on partway through. it just shows how flexible and accommodating Mott MacDonald are as an employer. So thank you so much. Anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat, because our 3 speakers are going to be in the chat now to answer any of those questions that came in. I'm going to welcome our next speaker now, Alex Knight, who is the founder of STEMAZING, who will be telling you a lot more about what her organisation does and giving you more details about that fabulous competition that's coming up shortly.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you. And hello to everybody who's watching at home and to the lovely audience here as well. It's fantastic to be here. So, I'm going to talk about, in this very brief skills workshop, levelling up as a visible role model. It's something that I personally feel very passionate about, and I've seen the benefits of other women doing so as well, for themselves and for the next generation. So what I want you to get out of this skills workshop is an understanding of why visible role models are so important, some practical tips and hints that you can take away with you, and looking at some of those common barriers to being more visible and more vocal. And also, I'd love for you to take away your personal pledge for today. So if you can think about that as we go through this workshop, please. Right, a brief intro to me. Now, normally I reel off the things that I've done and achievements throughout my career to date, but I thought for this particular session, the most important thing I can tell you about myself is that I would describe myself as a recovering wallflower. So a wallflower being somebody who is very happy to sit on the sidelines, not be in the spotlight, not want any attention directly on me. And over the years, I have developed my ability and my confidence to be in the spotlight and actually learned to really embrace it and enjoy it and gain the benefits for me personally as well as my career and inspiring others. So hopefully you can take away from this little workshop today some kind of inspiration from my own personal journey and some of the hints and tips that I'll give you that you can implement starting from today. If you're in that same position of feeling a bit like you're a bit nervous or anxious of stepping into the limelight, of being more visible, either at university in your projects or going out into schools or presentations or any of that. So all of those examples are things where you need to step up and be more visible. And there are some very simple things you can do to help yourself with that. Let's first look at why, though. Why is it so important that I feel women in particular step up as more visible role models? Well, if you know any of the stats at all, you will be aware that we don't have enough women in STEM. There is not enough of us. I'm an engineer myself. It's great to see other women in STEM in the audience, and I know we have lots of you watching at home as well. I know we also have men watching in the audience, which is fantastic. This applies to you as well. We need more men in STEM out there inspiring the next generation, and also as allies to women, supporting and championing them. So let's look at the problem, okay? In Europe, we have about 34% women in STEM. It gets worse as you look just at the UK, with only about 24% women in STEM. And if you look at the E in STEM, the engineering, it's even worse at only 16%. Now, this is slowly creeping up over the years, but it's kind of painfully slow, really, if you look at the progress. And I really feel that one of the big barriers, and what the research tells us as well, is that a lack of visible role models is a huge barrier to young people aspiring to go into STEM, and particularly things like engineering. So we need more women in STEM role models out there being visible, talking about what they do to inspire the next generation. The phrase, "you can't be what you can't see," is absolutely true. It's very powerful. And this stereotype bias around who can or should do those kind of STEM roles starts surprisingly young. Anyone who's got maybe young nieces or nephews will know that children, even from babies, are given boys' toys, girls' toys, dressed in boys' colours, girls' colours. There's so much gender stereotyping from such a young age. And this also applies to thoughts around careers and aspirations around careers. So the research shows that children as young as 3 to 5-year-olds already know what a boy career is and what a girl career is, and there is less support for those counter-stereotypical careers. So for example, a girl wanting to be an engineer, children as young as 3 to 5 show less support for that. Okay, so we need to start tackling this gender stereotype bias really, really young. There is a positive side to looking at the importance of women in STEM role models. So if you look at women inspiring women, obviously that's a plus. Like, we definitely know that women are inspired by seeing other women, but also boys, young boys and men are inspired by seeing women in those roles. So the research shows us that girls who only see male STEM educators feel like there could be barriers for them, that they might not belong. But girls seeing female STEM educators or female role models in STEM feel like they could belong. Okay, so that's a positive. But interestingly, boys who see female STEM educators don't feel like they would be any less well respected or have any less kudos or not belong in that space. They still feel that they would belong, but they have a more equitable view of women and girls. And this is a fundamental part of unconscious bias, which leads into inclusion in the workplace. And we've already talked today a lot about inclusion and creative, inclusive work cultures. And again, I really feel like we need to be looking at how to sort of tackle those unconscious biases right from a very, very young age. So women in STEM role models is a win-win for boys and girls, and it's a big part of that inclusion puzzle as well. And the reason why, as part of what I do in STEMAZING, is targeting such young children, so really looking at infant and primary school age children, is that we know that you can have a greater impact as a role model in early childhood. So when you have STEM interventions for young children, it's more likely to change their minds about who can or should go into STEM when they're older. So we need to be sowing these seeds right at the very early stages. And that's why I feel like for us stepping up as visible role models and getting out there and inspiring young people is so, so important. And that's why I created STEMAZING, which is a not-for-profit social enterprise. I had a really enjoyable career as an engineer for over 15 years in industry. Worked on some fantastic projects, really loved it. But I always had this burning passion, if you like, to do more in the diversity and inclusion space. And I was doing a lot voluntarily, and then I looked at how I could actually make that my day job as well, and not just make an impact from the stuff I was doing personally, but empower and support others to maximize and amplify that impact. So I created STEMAZING, and the main mission behind that is to support women in STEM to be more confident, visible role models and inspire our next generation. And so we have two key themes, STEMAZING Women and STEMAZING Kids. One of the sort of flagship initiatives that I run, that's already been mentioned today by Amanda, is the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy. And this is a 4-month online program for women in STEM. It's completely free if you get a place. You don't have to pay for your place, but we often, well, we are very oversubscribed, so I have to down select the people that I can take. But it's free, you don't have to pay for it. It's a 4-month program. You learn how to be a more confident, visible role model. You learn how to get comfortable with STEM outreach for primary school children, and you get to practice delivering those sessions live to primary school kids. So I'm going to show you a very short video now to give you a bit more of an insight into the Inspiration Academy. So I'm really proud of this. I'm proud of how many women we have empowered to be more confident, visible role models. And I'm super proud of how many kids we have inspired through our really hands-on, practical and engaging fun STEM activities that they can do in the classroom. So I will talk a bit more about that at the end and how you can get involved. But as you can see, this whole piece around women being more visible as role models is so important. It's absolutely vital for greater diversity and inclusion in our STEM workplaces. But it not only helps with that sort of future piece, empowered, visible women can help themselves in their workplace right now. So feeling more empowered, growing your empowerment muscles, if you like, is so important for you going forward in your life and in your career. And it's something you can absolutely do yourself. You can own that responsibility and that accountability to develop your confidence and your empowerment. So don't wait for someone else to sort of give you the opportunities. Step into it and take that ownership and that power and do it for yourselves now. And I know we're going to have more on empowerment later in this conference today. It's really, really important in the workplace that we have empowered women, but there is a lot in my experience of managing and mentoring women that can hold them back from that, from stepping up into being more visible and more vocal. And one of the main things when you talk to people is fear, quite honestly. It's fear of a whole host of different things. Fear of if you step up and say something, say if you speak up in a meeting, that you might make a mistake, you might feel embarrassed, you might feel that you're shamed in the room for saying something wrong, that you might get ridiculed, that you're not good enough, that you don't have the right skills, the right qualifications. The list goes on and on and on for all the reasons we tell ourselves that we can't step up and be more visible and vocal, or that we can't own the title of role model. Okay, and these things are very common and in a way completely understandable in society, how women are in a way socialized to sort of put themselves down, to sort of play small, to not brag about your wins or your capabilities or your successes. It's not seen as attractive. You've got this real problem of likability bias that benefits men and doesn't benefit women. So there are lots of things sort of holding us or keeping us in a box, if you like. And the other thing is, if you just feel nervous about the idea of, say, public engagement, of public speaking, which is extremely common, then we physiologically get a response, a fear response. So it's not just in our heads, it's something that physically happens in our bodies and can therefore feel like it's holding us back. And that is traced back to our ancestry, to our, very early survival responses of how we respond to fear situations. And going into the sort of like physiology behind it, it's in our brains when our amygdala, the oldest part of our brain, is in control, when we're in this sort of fight or flight response, like our, life is potentially in threat. That can be kicked in situations like public speaking, where you feel completely uncomfortable. So there are things you can do to help you get your prefrontal cortex, your important part of your logical part of your brain, back in control, and therefore get back into feeling calm and content in the situation. And one of the most easiest and practical things you can do is just breathe. I know it sounds so simple, but just taking a minute to do some really slow, deep breathing can calm your nerves, reduce the adrenaline, reduce the cortisol, therefore disengage your amygdala, get your prefrontal cortex back in control, and therefore you will be in control of your own thoughts and how you want to approach the situation. So breathing is one thing I would say, take away from this, practice some nice deep slow breathing before you do anything that you feel scared or anxious about, like speaking in front of other people. The other thing is this real issue around negative self-talk. So a lot of women I see put themselves down. And again, lots of research shows that actually really does have negative consequences. Your performance degrades when you put yourself down. So every time you're thinking about putting yourself down or you notice a negative thought come into your brain, be aware of it, flip it round. think of something positive you can say to yourself. You are in control of your thoughts, and it makes a big difference. And one of the things we talk about in the Inspiration Academy training is looking at this zones diagram and how you can stretch your comfort zone using some very simple strategies, because it's very possible for you to go from a very comfortable bubble into a much more developmental growth space if you proactively do so. So it's very important that this is in your control. And I just want to finish on the fact that, you know, right now, you are all role models. Right now, you have the ability to inform and influence and inspire others. We are all role models every day in everything we do, whether we know it or not. That is a fact. So please take up space, be visible, be vocal, proactively stretch your comfort zone, champion yourself and others. Think about that every day, what you're doing to champion yourself and to champion others. And think about what your personal pledge could be that you're going to take away from today. So I really want you to remember this. You are all STEMAZING. You are absolutely STEMAZING. Think more positively and champion yourself. And just to quickly wrap up, if you want to apply for the Inspiration Academy, which Amanda has already mentioned, please do. You can use this QR code. You can go to our website to get more information. But if you want to apply for the competition for those 6 guaranteed spaces, then follow Amanda's instructions, which she'll go through again at the end. Thank you very much. You know where I am. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook at STEMAZING, on LinkedIn if you want to connect in with me. And thank you very much for having me today.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. Really great advice there, actually. I should learn to do a lot more breathing myself. You should have seen me before this started. In terms of the competition, we will have more details coming up, so don't worry. They will be during the break on a loop, so you'll be able to get those details. And Alex will be joining us in the panel discussion towards the end. So any questions, she's in the chat now, but if you've got any questions, please pop them over to her during the panel discussion. So next, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Amy Burns from the Royal Navy. If you could give her a warm welcome, that would be great.
Thank you very much. I've just been sat breathing, so thank you. It was definitely worth the heads up. Thank you. Thank you very much. As we mentioned, my name's Lieutenant Amy Burns, and I'm representing the Royal Navy today. I'm going to talk you through a brief history of my career to date, which is just coming up to 20 years in the Navy. And also as a submariner, which I'll go into in a second, how that has changed in the time that I've been in the Navy. So in the 20 years, that has evolved massively from no women in submarines to someone like me serving. Okay, so I'll give you a career history, what I've been up to over the last 20 years, with some good stories, places I've been and such. And then I'll go on to why we never allowed women in submarines for such a long time. I'm then going to move on to what changes have been made to allow women to serve in submarines, and then where we are now and where we're going to be moving forward as a Navy. So in 2003, I joined the Navy as an 18-year-old. Unlike most of the people listening today, I didn't go to university. I went to school. I did really well at school. I tried college. It wasn't for me, and I left college about 6 months after I started. And I didn't really know what to do with my life. I was a tinkerer. You know, I like playing with bikes. I like playing with anything, fixing DIY, the sort of the whole shebang. And so when I went into the careers office, and they said, well, if you like, you know, fixing stuff, then the Navy may be for you. You can fix stuff and you can travel as well, and we'll pay you as an apprentice. So I joined the Navy in 2003 as a marine engineering artificer apprentice. Well, what does that mean, an artificer apprentice? That means that you come in, you get paid a good wage, which we'll talk about a little bit more during our Royal Navy segment in an hour or so. But it means that you're working on the job as a trainee. So that gives you the opportunity to mess up. You know, you can make mistakes, you can learn from people who are much more experienced than you. And I did that for a long time. So I went from working on Type 42 destroyers, which are the oldest ships that the Navy had at the time, and they were steam ships, very agricultural engineering. I learned a lot of fundamental engineering principles working on Type 42s, and it was brilliant. The only thing that wasn't brilliant in 2003 was the sort of mentality of women at sea. You know, it was all still fairly new. I was the only female in the marine engineering department. And the first chief I came across, who was probably about 45 at the time, I said, you know, I knocked on his door and I was like, Chief, I've come to work for you today. And he said, well, it's not your lucky day because I don't really like women and I don't like artificers, so we're probably not going to get on. And I was like, oh, good, yeah. Where shall I work first? So, you know, that was 2003. But, you know, one of my mantras is I let my competence do the talking. And I also let my work ethic do the talking. So where I may not be competent in some areas, I like to think that I've got a good work ethic. And actually, I managed to win that old man round. So the pictures on your left is a Type 42 destroyer. That's the equivalent in car terms for those of you that have seen Only Fools and Horses. I then moved on to the Type 45, which is the newest of the well, at the time, the newest of the Royal Navy ships, which was basically like moving from a three-wheeler to a Bugatti Veyron. For those of you who know something about cars and technology, it was completely different. We went from, you know, manual gearbox drive ships to integrated electrical propulsion with high voltage. You know, it was all the new era stuff. So I've gone from working on fundamentally agricultural engineering to the new sort of integrated gate bipolar transistors that drive the electric motors in our high voltage system. So it was a massive step. And during that time, I worked on, you know, we worked in various areas. The pictures I've put up here, you know, we went up to China. Obviously, the ship didn't go to the Great Wall of China, but we pulled up in China where we have issues with support, hot water temperatures, and the engineering challenges surrounding that. All the way down to Antarctica, which is what you can see down at the bottom, and New York, just because I'm showing off that I went to New York on a ship. So I then returned as a Chief Petty Officer in 2010 as the subject matter expert for propulsion in the Navy. And I was one of the very few females that knew so much about gas turbines. So Rolls-Royce and myself, you know, we came up with training for the new Type 45s, simulators, maintenance. I taught everybody from the youngest lads and lasses who came in to do sort of basic jobs like dipping the oil level to the guys that were doing a combustion can change or a complete engine change. So that was my job. And during that time, I was selected to become a commissioned officer, which for those of you who might not know, a commissioned officer is the next level up from the ratings, whereby you end up with stripes on your shoulder, so you look like an airline pilot. But you're more of a managerial approach. But at that time, I was very, very lucky, because what also happened at the same time was that the Navy had changed their rules, and females were being allowed to work in submarines. Something I'd always wanted to do. Why do I want to work in submarines? Because it's a nuclear reactor, and that is cool. Like, so cool. It's cool every day that I do it, and I love it, and I don't care how proud I am of it. And I was the first female marine engineer to go through into the submarine service. I went there with the same mantra. I don't care what you think about what's underneath my overalls. I'm going to come here and show you that I am competent at my job. Okay, and if I don't know, I will work hard to find out what it is that I'm doing. So I became the first female marine engineer to qualify as a submariner, which is this gold badge at the top, which is a very, very small brotherhood, as it is called in the Navy, with a couple of sisters now. And I also became the first Cat A nuclear watchkeeper. What does that mean? That means that I get to start and stop a nuclear reactor and take it to sea on a submarine and then dive it as well. That's my job. That's cool. Okay, so the boring sort of stuff. The history really it's not boring. You know, why didn't we have women serving at sea in submarines? So throughout the sort of the ages, women working in submarines has been sort of one of the last bastions, one of the last glass ceilings that we wanted to get women into, that and sort of operating on the front line as well. Now, during World War II, I did a bit of research, and the only real interaction we had of women with submariners and submarines was that women during the war used to load the torpedoes onto the British subs. And that's pretty much the only interaction I could find until around about 2014, with the exception of one story, which is phenomenal. There was a lady, please excuse me reading my notes, her name was Sigrid Green, and she was a member of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Now, it transpired during World War II that she was of Norwegian descent and she spoke fluent Norwegian. And we needed her to go and become a translator and a bit of a spy over in Norway during the war. So what we did, the Navy, was we made her look like a guy and we smuggled her onto a submarine and we smuggled her and dropped her off just outside, I think it was, it was just outside Norway, where she walked hundreds of miles to do her spying. I'm not allowed to spin those details, but then she did what she needed to do in Norway, and then she stowed away in a tiny aircraft in the luggage compartment to get home and come back to Bletchley Park and deliver all of her information. Fascinating. That is the first female to serve in a submarine, and nobody within the submarine service was even aware that a woman had been to sea with them at the time. Moving forward, so sort of 40 years later, the Norwegian Navy, ironically, became the first to allow women to serve on board on diesel submarines. Then it was the Danish Navy in 88, Sweden in 89, Australia, Canada and Spain, as per my slide, all of which were conventional diesel-driven submarines. And that's really important, because when you have a diesel-driven submarine, you have to keep coming up and replenishing your air supply, which will make a bit more sense in a second. So we allowed the Navy, the British Navy, sorry, were sort of investigating why we couldn't let women on submarines alongside the Americans. And I'm going to read you an extract, so I am going to read it out loud, quite an important document. So in 2001, the medical implications of women serving in submarine paper was published by the US Navy Board. It was a justification as to why women could not serve on nuclear submarines. And I promise you this is real. It states, using historical data, it was observed that women attended the sick bay, the medical bay, 2.5 times more than their male counterparts. They were 6 times more likely to suffer migraines, 2.5 times more likely to suffer personal injury while carrying out the same duties, and so on. This went on for a few more pages. But at no point did they say where women were better than men. It was all about, championing the women down. So the conclusive sentence of that statement said, with the introduction of females into the submarine environment, there will be an increased medical liability that the women will bring. The submarine will require additional medical staff for which it's not been designed for, and it would be unable to accommodate. And furthermore, with the increased medical issues with women at sea, the effect on other crew members having to compensate for this loss is substantial. And that was 21 years ago. And that's why the Americans, and subsequently us at the time, wouldn't allow women to go to sea on boats. There were loads of other stuff in that report, but basically the fallout is that if you were to become pregnant at sea, occasionally the atmosphere would not support the life of an unborn fetus. So how did we decide that we would get round that? What we've done is we've installed a system on board the submarines that means that we obviously just do a pregnancy test before you go to sea to make sure that you are not pregnant before you go. We monitor the atmosphere, and we've got a system to remove some of the impurities out of the atmosphere that that would harm the unborn fetus should you get pregnant at sea, until we can get you off. So, as you can see on the screen, the picture is fairly poor, but basically, and this is not just women, we sleep between the missile tubes. So the 60-ton ballistic missiles, that's where our beds are, and we sleep sort of 9 of us. Occasionally it might be 3 of us, separated by curtains and whatnot, and many amendments have been made to heads and bathrooms, but invariably we are still separated from the male contingent. However, in 2013, As I showed you on a previous slide, the first 3 females joined HMS Vigilant. In 2014, I joined HMS Victorious, which was the proudest day of my naval career by a country mile. And we have evolved what's going on in terms of accommodation, the systems that we use to support females at sea, forever trying to increase inclusivity and make our deployment of females in submarines as flexible as we possibly can. The last thing I would say is, just from a learning from experience thing is, as I've said, competence is your key, and your work ethic is your key, but also having the buy-in, the male allies to say, I will treat you the same as the guys, or more importantly, I will make sure that you are held to the same standard as the guys that are on board, so that you have credibility in your job. So if you go into a male-dominated workplace, like, I will be in charge when I go back of 70 men potentially, and it'll just be me in my department. You just need to make sure that everybody is treated the same. Sounds easy, but it's not. I think I might be the only female in that picture. Yeah, I am definitely the only female in that picture. White shirts, far left. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Amy. That was incredible to hear, actually, the momentous speed in which some organisations have gone over such a short amount of time to evolve quickly to be able to employ more women and do so safely within their environments. So any questions, please pop them in the chat. We are running slightly behind on time, but Amy will be in the chat to answer any questions that you have during that. And I'd like to welcome now our next speaker. We have Clare Johnson, who's the Early Talent Specialist from Accenture.
Lovely, thank you. Amy, that was so interesting. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, I'm Clare, work for Accenture, and I'm going to basically do a bit of a whistle-stop tour for you today about what life is like at Accenture and what it might include if you join us as an analyst in the business. I certainly didn't know what Accenture did when I was at university. I'd maybe heard people talking about consultancy, but I had no idea what that actually involved, so hopefully I can bring that to life for you a little bit today. So I've got a few stats on the screen for you. Accenture are absolutely huge. Last year we billed $61 billion. So we're a global company with a lot of impact and a lot of power behind us. You can see 89 of the Fortune 100 clients work with Accenture. So we partner with some really brilliant people, and it means we know the work that we do is amazing. On the far right there, you can see that 98 of our top 100 clients have been with us for over 10 years. So we know the work that we do is brilliant and we do it well. So we're all about making positive change. This shows you a little bit, I guess, of scope of the delivery centres that we've got. We operate, as you can see here, in 50 centres in 39 different languages. And we've got nearly 750,000 employees around the globe. So the impact of the work that we do is nothing short of phenomenal at times. But what is it that we actually do? We're a tech consultancy, so we use technology to make change in business. We try and make sure that companies keep themselves relevant, but they also future-proof themselves for upcoming challenges. So if a client has maybe a problem or an issue, or their business isn't going as they would like, they'll come to Accenture, we'll crunch the data, and then we'll present to them a solution that we think will help make them more money, make them more efficient, or create real-world impact. You might be part of that as somebody, what we call client-facing, so going into these businesses, meeting clients, helping them understand how to change, or you might be the tech people that sit behind the work that we do, so maybe a software engineer, a technology architect, something quite technical that helps us build the products that we use with our clients. To give you I guess a bit of an example, when the pandemic hit, so many businesses that were used to operating in person really rapidly had to suddenly become set up for technology. So Accenture helped connect the NHS, their 1.2 million staff, within a week and a half to be set up to work remotely, something we're really, really proud of. So there's real variety in the work that you do. If you join Accenture, you're always going to be solving real world challenges, and that's what I love about the work that we do. And you can see our true global footprint, hopefully on that map there. So as an analyst, you join as an entry level to the business with the hope of becoming a consultant within a couple of years. Now, we hope you would join aspiring to be really successful in your career. You can see here quite how many people we've promoted recently and how much we invest in training and development. We give you the space to be curious, the opportunity to learn, but it's up to you to get yourself there. You will need to have a real interest in technology. It'll probably come as no surprise. We know that you might not come from a tech background necessarily. Many of you will. But if you don't feel like you're an expert in technology per se, that's absolutely fine. As long as you can show through your studies you've got that willingness to learn, we will do the rest. I'd also say that the thing that makes us really brilliant is our product is our people. We're not selling an asset or any sort of physical merchandise. It's Accenture people that make the work that we do brilliant. So when you join, the people that you'll be working with are fantastic. They're always happy to have a bit of a coffee, a bit of a catch-up, and make sure you feel you know what direction your career is going in. Now you can see the stat at the bottom, something I am really proud of. 47% of our workforce are women, which for a tech consultancy is unheard of, and we're on track to have gender parity by 2025. So that means 50% men and women split, which has been really championed by our CEO, Julie Sweet. So yes, our CEO is a female, as is our CFO, girl power. And we're really proud of Julie. Just a couple of months ago, she was named by Forbes as the second most powerful woman in business. And that sort of recognises the real change that she's bringing to the work that we do. She puts a real focus on critically important things in society, so sustainability, racial equality, and you really feel that as an employee when you're working in the business. So I mentioned racial equality. That comes under some of our broader, more D&I work that we do. So different people bring different ideas, different perspectives, and that's what makes the work that we do fantastic. We love incoming analysts to the business, especially if you're fresh out of university or you've had a couple of years in the workplace, because you'll come with new perspectives, you'll challenge the status quo and challenge the way that we do things, the way that we see things. We've also been named as one of the best workplaces for women this year, as well as #1 in Diversity Inc.'s top companies to work for considering diversity. Another thing I'm really proud of, pay equity. So every dollar for dollar, pound for pound, we have pay equity for women compared to men in every single country that we operate. So something we really want to be proud of and shout about from the rooftops. So when you're an analyst, this is exactly what we want you to be doing, innovating and having real-world impact in the work that you do. Like I said earlier, you're not expected to be an expert. We just want you to be passionate and keen to learn. We'll give you training. You'll join a community of other analysts, other consultants, and with them, you'll sort of like create your own support network, a network to learn, a network to sort of experience various different disciplines that we serve. We've got real breadth. We work across multiple industries, anything from finance to retail to the life sciences. So there's something for everybody with us. Something, again, I'm really proud of is our Accenture Development Partnership. So we address social and economic and environmental issues. So we've worked in over 100 countries and we sort of work and have impact on critical areas, global health, nutrition, agriculture, climate, the environment. So we make sure that we're really having 360 value and giving back to society. Now this is me in the metaverse. I've straightened my hair this day, clearly. It's my avatar. We use the metaverse. When you join Accenture, your orientation is actually in the metaverse. You'll have an Oculus headset and meet your colleagues in the metaverse space. A really cool way to make sure you're feeling connected to people, even if you're not, if they're not with you there in person. That's just one example of the sort of innovations that you might come across if you work at Accenture very, very early doors. We have this concept called side of desk. So it means whatever project you're on, we make time for you to have interest in a passion project. So myself, I'm working on the metaverse. I'm part of something called Project Avatar, where we spend time in the metaverse and feedback so we can deliver really great products for our clients. But there are all sorts of things that you can get involved in, whether that's joining allyship programs, it could be joining our sustainability team, or upskilling yourself quite cleverly. So you can often do some side of desk work to maybe deliver or to develop yourself in an area where maybe you've not got as much experience through your commercial exposure. Just another little selfie when we were in the metaverse the other day. This is one of our events. Weirdly, they don't have arms, so I'm not quite sure what the design is there. These are our internships, our roles. I'm not going to run through them now, but they're all live on our website. So if anything about Accenture has appealed to you today, just go onto our sort of graduate page and you can have a bit of an explore of roles on there. The main thing we're looking for is that you're a self-starter. You're not afraid to go out there, meet people, give it your all, do independent research. You're not going to be spoon-fed at Accenture. We want you to have that drive to develop yourself. Also, maybe if you enjoy variety, because the work you do is project-based, so you're rolling on and rolling off to various projects, you'll keep the same colleagues, but with sort of mixing it up, so that's diversity in your work. If you're someone that gets itchy feet quite quickly, you could make a brilliant analyst at Accenture. And I just wanted to show you one final slide, which is our virtual work experience. It's something that I think is a brilliant offering that we've got. Each course takes about 5 or 6 hours to complete, but you can get a bit of a taster for consulting or some of our technology programs. They're all self-paced. We're not assessing you. It won't impact your recruitment process, but completing one is something that you'll get a certificate for. You can pop it on LinkedIn, pop it on your CV, and it's also something brilliant to talk about in interviews. So if you're thinking, maybe I am a little bit interested in consulting, I'm not sure, go on there. We've got some Accenture leadership bringing you through some real life tasks and simulations, and that QR code there should bring you straight to the page. Oh, I have got one final slide. These are our upcoming events, and again, the QR code will take you there. So our applications are open in a couple of, just a few days' time, so next week. Any questions? Our Accenture Live series on that previous slide should really help you put your best foot forward. And I'm just going to finish with a really quick video that hopefully sums up what life at Accenture is like.
Whose job is it to improve the world? It can feel like it's inevitable that someone, somewhere, will invent the tech that helps us take the next step forward. But it's not. Technology has the power to improve the world, but it won't. Not without human intelligence, our ideas, our ideals. Technology can help us get there, but it won't show us where to go. That relies on bold ideas and the desire to build a better future. It won't come by asking the same old questions. It isn't tweaking the same old answers. Building a better future can't rely on doing things the way they've always been done. That future can be built by anyone. Anyone ready to think differently. The ones willing to ask, why not? The ones who look, listen, and ask, why can't this be better? Why can't that be you? There's no set vision of the future, our future. It's going to be the one you live in. So who says you can't be part of making a better one? There's no one path to making a breakthrough, and there's no one person responsible. It might start with a thought, an idea, an invention, but there's no innovation without collaboration. It begins when different people bring different ideas and different perspectives together. We need new ways of looking at old challenges, fresh experience examining new problems. It's taking the tools that already exist and asking that one question to deliver results that have never been seen. No one is saying it's easy, but if you think it's not for you, ask yourself, who else can do what you can do? Your experience, your perspective, your ideas will unlock a version of the future. We won't make progress by staying still. We won't improve the world without creating something new. And we can't do that without you. Accenture.
Great, thank you so much, Claire. And so many events coming up as well, and we had some questions in the chat, so Claire will be joining the chat to answer those questions and give a link to a page for all of the different events that they've got going on over the autumn. So we're slightly running over time, so we're going to have a slight pause now. Here's what's coming up after the break, but we're going to be showing the details of the competition so that you can get that information down. We've had some applications in already, which is fantastic, so please keep them coming in. We'll see you back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I know that was a very short break, but we have got a fantastic skills session coming up now with Jaguar Land Rover, who are going to be giving us a whistle-stop tour all about microaggressions, how to recognise them and challenge them in the workplace or in the education setting that you're in. So I'd like you to welcome now Joanna Heyman.
Thank you very much, Amanda. So firstly, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I'm Jo Heyman, and I'm a second-year graduate at Jaguar Land Rover. I'm going to talk more about my experiences and my background in the Insight session later. But for now, we're going to focus on how to recognise and challenge microaggressions. So firstly, what is a microaggression? So microaggression is a statement, action, or incident that is regarded as an indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against a marginalised group. So an example of this is, for example, with communication. I have had this a little bit early on in my career as well, so having been at Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, for about a year, is when you make a point but it's not actually heard in the group until a male colleague repeats this. This is an example I'm going to come back to at various stages as we progress through the skills workshop. So things to point out, although it is called a microaggression, and though the statements can be micro, they can have a huge effect on people. They can be incredibly impactful, incredibly harmful. And even though they're aggressions, they can be born from unconscious bias or even attempts to fit in or to be polite. So microaggressions, they manifest in a few different forms, and I'm going to quickly rattle through those as well. So they can be in the form of microassaults. So this is explicit or derogatory, and it can be non-verbal or verbal that is intended to hurt the person. So an example of this might be wearing offensive clothing or offensive symbols, or calling someone by a derogatory term. Another example, another form, is a micro-insult. And this can convey rudeness, a communication that can convey rudeness and insensitivity. And it can demean someone's heritage, someone's qualifications, or someone's identity. And an example of this might be, for example, a female engineer, how did you get the role? So implying that they got it somehow by being female and not through their own merit. And the final example of one of these forms is micro-invalidations, and these really focused around sort of the impact they have and the imposter syndrome that they can give someone. So these are communications that exclude, nullify, or negate the thoughts, feelings, or reality of a person. So for example, where are you really from? Or you're too pretty to code. So we flashed up here just a few different stats, and this really highlights, particularly in a career in engineering and in STEM, as we saw the stats earlier, with 24% of women in STEM in the UK and 16% in engineering, that really particularly stand out. So we've highlighted just a few major stats here. So 64% of women experience microaggressions in the workplace. And 32% of employees think that harassment is quickly addressed, so this is incredibly low. Microaggressions are a lot more prevalent than we think, and they're harder to detect. So it's really about how we address them and how we can become more conscious of our unconscious biases, how we can do better, and how we can encourage others to do the same. So we're going to move on next about what to do in the two different scenarios, one in the example where you receive a microaggression, and the second in the example that you unintentionally give a microaggression yourself in your communication. So we're going to start with a microaggression at you, at me. So the first point is that don't feel pressured to react. And if you do decide to react, to feel empowered to do so, it's within your right. It's you who's been insulted by this. And similarly, don't feel like you need to hide your feelings. And in fact, all the more reason to let them show, as they will show the other person what impact their statement has had on you. And it's not your responsibility to protect their feelings and their emotions. Ask for clarification. So encourage unpacking of what they've discussed. So for example, what do you mean by that? Make them think about it. And this is a really good way to sort of use curiosity to form questions, and it's slightly less confrontational. People can get a bit more comfortable and open to engaging on that front. And the final point is do what makes you comfortable. So there's no need to continue a conversation that's making you feel bad, and you can walk away from that. And on the point of be yourself and protect your joy, I used to think at the start that I had to go in and be like the other engineers. I had to sort of project this male persona. But actually, sort of the more your confidence grows, the more you feel you can be yourself, and that's your most authentic self. That's your most effective self that you're going to give the most to in the workplace. So to move on to talk a bit, actually, I missed the second part of that, which is if you accidentally give a microaggression. Apologies about that. So the first point is to own up and to apologize. It was a mistake on your part, and you've hurt the other person's feelings, so you've got to acknowledge that. Center on their feelings and not yours, as they're the important person in this situation. No matter how good the intent, the impact of it was harmful, and that impact is more significant than any positive intent that you had. It's important to learn from it, to correct and educate yourself. And we put here sort of move on and do better. One example that a colleague of mine highlighted was with her sort of young daughter, I think about 5 years old, being quite bossy. As being bossy is sort of a stereotype that comes across as being quite negative for women in leadership positions. She's really tried to make the positive change to move on and embrace that as how can she use that in a leadership scenario to kind of associate positive associations with it rather than the negative ones that is often perceived for women in leadership positions. So moving on to talk specifically about Jaguar Land Rover. So we're committed to fostering a really diverse and inclusive environment. We're at a really, really critical point of change at the moment with sort of the state of the world and in our workplace particularly. So we're reimagining our business, actually called Reimagine, which is quite exciting and inspiring as well, and going all electric in Jaguar by 2025. We strongly believe that an inclusive environment is sort of the key to propelling our business forward, to being representative of our society and of our customers, and to allow people to be their authentic selves. And we want people to feel that as well and having the confidence to apply and being able to see role models and representation in Jaguar Land Rover where they can excel and pursue a really successful career. So, oh, that went one too far. Or not. Sorry about that. So this is called We Are JLR, and these are our networks that we have for diversity and inclusion at Jaguar Land Rover, and you can see that they're, quite really well represented, and we're really, really proud of what we've done. And I'm actually on the Women in Engineering and Allies Committee as one of the site champions. So we're sort of all about taking responsibility for inclusive environments, and this starts with the individual. And it's about how can we all be allies. So allyship is about encouraging continuous learning and positive conversations, addressing knowledge gaps, ignorance, and unconscious bias, and really fostering an inclusive community, because that's when our team is going to perform at its best and be its most effective. We're really proud to champion racial equality as well, being the first UK manufacturer to sign Business and Community Race at Work Charter, and also to have joined the Valuable 500, which is a global movement which is dedicated to disability inclusion. So I'm going to leave you all now with a few key takeaways. It's really important that we challenge ourselves when we make mistakes, that we learn and we grow from it, because we all do make mistakes. We all have unconscious biases, and that we really learn how to be an ally and how to encourage others to do the same. We also need to break down these perceptions with curiosity, not with judgment, as this can lead to feelings of shame. And to sort of just highlight what we've covered then in this workshop. We've gone through what microaggressions are, some different forms of microaggressions, what to do if you receive or if you give a microaggression, and highlighting what JLR is currently doing to address them. And I hope this has been productive and that you've learned something, and feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joanna. That was amazing. So much content that I wasn't even aware of as well. So I learned a huge amount from that. And I think the important thing from there is to see it from every angle as well, how you would give a microaggression, how you might receive one. So our next Employer Insights session is we're back with the Royal Navy. We're joined by Amy Burns and Shannon Brown to tell us more about insights, all about working with the Royal Navy.
Thank you very much. We don't have a multitude of slides. We just thought we'd put some really glamorous women in engineering photographs up for you to have a look at while we spin our story. So the Royal Navy, what do we do? Some people might not be aware what it is the Navy actually do. We operate in two sort of spheres, be it in peacetime as we are now, or in wartime, hopefully never again, but we have to prepare for it just in case. So from a peacetime perspective, what do? We stabilise the seaways, we keep maritime trade routes open, we protect fishing grounds, and we provide disaster relief. For example, during the tsunami in 2005 out in the Far East, and generally annually out in the Caribbean. We provide the ability to help people rebuild their lives out in the Caribbean. We also do some sort of fighting of crime, for want of a better phrase, at sea. So the drug runners, the people smugglers, the pirates out in the Far East. And what you probably don't realise is the Navy are pivotal in providing that we keep these seaways open and keep this sea crime down, so that the cost of living doesn't get stifled by pirates, by the Evergreen being, locked and stopping trade routes opening through the Suez Canal and all those sorts of bits and pieces. So that's what we do. Well, engineering and technology is what we need to keep the ships and the submarines out in those areas doing their jobs at sea. In addition to that, something called the continuous at-sea deterrent. And what is that? That is us on submarines. We have a submarine at sea 365 days a year, that's right, days a year, carrying strategic weapons, nuclear weapons, as a deterrent to prevent people attacking our country, any NATO countries, and providing us the stability and the security that we need in our country for our daily lives. So everybody, we need every kind of engineering technology to be able to do our jobs. So you can be a marine engineer, a weapons engineer, or an air engineer. Shannon's going to go in a bit more about marine engineers. You can be electrical, you can be mechanical, you can be nuclear, which is my specialisation. Previously, I was a mechanical engineer as well. From the weapons engineering perspective, which is also pretty cool, you can take subspecialisation in communications. We have cyber specialists, radar and electronics, physical guns, big guns on the upper deck, 4.5-inch guns, little rifles, handguns, torpedoes, and all the way up to our strategic weapons, which are, many, many tons of nuclear warheads on foreheads. However, you can access all of those engineering level jobs from somebody who left school like myself with GCSEs or without GCSEs actually, all the way to some of you guys that are here that have got, studying for being graduates. You can join as a rating. So somebody who comes in at the bottom as an apprentice like myself back in the day in 2003, on the job training, and there are a multitude of ways that we can promote you through the ranks to increase the exposure to different tasking, increase your pay, increase your managerial experience in, and conducting some in-service training as well. And I imagine Shannon probably will be talking about that in a second. We've got accelerated apprenticeship for those that may come in with slightly better qualifications, so 3 specific GCSEs, level 3 MVQs. We've also got the university graduate scheme, which allows you to come in with baseline qualifications, and then throughout a set period in the Navy, you can be fast-tracked through to become a petty officer like Shannon here. And then the Navy will get out what they need from you, and at the end of that, you can choose to stay in the Navy, you get a full degree at the end of it, you can then become a naval officer like myself, or you can choose to leave. So there are a multitude of different ways that we can employ you. For those that have a degree, you can join as a rating, should you wish, but there is an alternative. You can join as a direct entry officer. You don't have to be promoted like myself. And that means that you can become an engineering officer if you have any of the STEM subjects, and you can come in and become a direct managerial role rather than somebody who is on the tools and all those sorts of bits. And for those of you who maybe in the first sorts of couple of years of your careers, we have the cadetship, whereby you can join a local university Royal Naval unit, small ships and a club, and basically you get paid to study at university. And just the last one before I hand over to Shannon, for those graduates that join in an engineering specialisation, there is a £27,000 bonus, which should help you pay off some of your university fees, should you wish to join into an engineering specialisation. I'll hand over to Shannon.
Got big shoes to fill. I've got to try and sell the general service. I'm not as glamorous and don't go on boats. So I am petty officer, marine engineer, mechanical, Shannon Brown. So I've been in the Navy nearly 15 years. I joined directly from school. I left for GCSEs, didn't have any drive to go and do A-levels or go to university. Lots of my friends had their career path set for them, but I was like, I'll go and see what the Navy's all about. I served on several ships. The Ark will be my first ship, best ship, and probably, as many of you are aware, the last of the carriers. I've been on several Type 45 destroyers. I've been based in FSU, which is a foil support unit out in Bahrain, supplying continuous support to the MCM squadrons whilst they've got their small ships, including the Sundowns. We offer them any technical advice, any rectification work, such as engine changes, which you can probably see in the bottom left. That is one of the ships last year in the blazing heat requiring an engine change. So the team that I'm part of, we set up, we'll stand up together. We all come as a unit, from the diesels engineer to the fridge engineer, all helping remove one engine to get a ship back to sea. My current position is in the Type 45 sim at HMS Sultan, so I take the new entries, either the direct entries or the new Killicks or the new ETs coming through that are going to be streamed onto the Type 45 destroyers and teach them basically breakdowns. You're thinking breakdowns, we have a lot of them. So basically, when they're at sea, should a breakdown occur, we teach them how to deal with the breakdown correctly in the safest manner to get the equipment back up and running in the quickest possible time. For me, my next billet will be the Queen Elizabeth class carrier, so I'm off onto the QA. I'm going to be the power group head, chose that purely for the name, I like it. And I specialise in diesels, so that means I'll maintain the diesel engines. Well, I say maintain, I'll be the group head of the diesel engines and the gas turbines, including the shaft line. To try and sell the general service, yes, we are just as male dominant as any other career, including civilian life. We are a small percentage within the Navy as a whole, not just in the engineering department. So you can imagine how small our engineering department is. I could probably count on two hands how many female senior mates that I know of. We're few and far between, but what we've got, I would like to say that we're specialists and very good at our jobs. So currently we have 74 ships and boats within the Navy. I would say the biggest problem that people find with joining the Royal Navy is where we're located. So you are located in 4 positions around the country. You've got Portsmouth, Plymouth, and we've got 2 bases in Scotland. If you can travel or you like to move around, it's ideal for you. I'm based in Portsmouth, love it. I moved down there as soon as I joined the Navy. I uprooted, left Kent where my parents live, and I moved to Portsmouth. So I will go back into the actual entry requirements. So I know that we're aimed at graduates and those that are probably doing their A-levels now potentially, but you don't have to, if you want to be an engineering technician like myself, I joined as an ET with only GCSEs, you technically do not need any qualifications. Any qualifications you do require, like key skills level 2, you will get within the Royal Navy, which will make you academically qualified to move on in your further positions. The starting salary on that is 20,000, so like I say, it's not as good as the £27,000 bonus you'll get if you go officer, but if you're happy to get your hands dirty and work your way up the ranks, it's easy to do. You can do it all accelerated now, or you can even do it through the accelerated apprenticeship, which you need a national vocation to join with. That is a £33,000 starting salary. You can do it between 17 and 25. And then if you get your full degree, again, I would recommend, if you get a full degree, joining up as an officer. If you've got the credit and the ability, you may as well get the extra money for it. Qualifications I've gained within being in the Royal Navy, so like I say, I joined as an engineering technician. I have no A-levels. I've got MVQs level 3. I got my fridge ticket. It's not as high as a full fridge ticket, which to you probably means nothing, but I can recover refrigerant from refrigerant machinery, which we utilise on board. I've got a foundation degree in marine systems that I've done on my petty officers course. From doing Chiefs course, which is a promotion I will get at some point, I've managed to obtain a level 6 in management and leadership, and I'm currently working towards my BEng honours in engineering management, and I'm trying to get my incorporated engineering status, which the Navy supports, and they will pay for your yearly subscription. Any questions?
We did have one question. Hold your claps. We did have one question. Somebody has asked if from a mathematics degree, would they be able to join on the graduate programme if they're not from a straight engineering degree?
I don't believe it is. Excuse me for a look. I don't believe it is. Excuse me for having a quick look.
I've got them written down. If I can't get it, we've got the information up.
I believe the degree needs to be in a STEM. So yes,
yeah, of course,
yes.
it should be covered.
Wonderful.
Just be aware that you have to have the mathematics degree will allow you entry into the Navy. What it won't do is understanding engineering concepts and such. So that's where you would then have to have the ability to transfer that over. But absolutely, it will at least get you through the front door to conduct the Admiralty interview to become a graduate.
Wonderful.
For sure.
Thank you. Great insights again, and Shannon will be on the employer panel at the end of the event as well. So if there are any more questions that come in, please pop them in the chat now and we'll do our best to get them answered on the panel later. So I'd like to welcome Chloe Lawrence from Amazon. She is our next skills session speaker, and this is all about CV and interview skills.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honour to be here. I'm really excited to share the opportunities we have for tech side in Amazon UK. So to start off, I just want to introduce myself. So I'm Chloe. I joined 2 years ago into Amazon, and I originally joined into operations side of Amazon. So I was actually working as an area manager in some of our Amazon robotics sites. So you may be familiar with some of the ones we have scattered around the UK. We have some in London. We have Bristol, Swindon. We have them pretty much everywhere. And then I moved into student programs team as a tech recruiter about 5 months ago. Could be 4 to 5 months now, but time flies in Amazon and you pick things up so quickly, it's really easy to lose track of time. So one thing I actually love about Amazon as a company is how fluid the company is in terms of movement. So, for example, my history, I moved from operations as an area manager into tech recruitment. There's no real correlation there. I had no previous recruitment experience, but it's just one of those companies that if you're really, really passionate and you want to dip your toes into different pools of water in the areas of business that we do have in Amazon, because it is such a big company, it's completely possible to do that. So that's probably my favorite thing about Amazon. So, to start off, we're going to be looking at the CV skills. So I'm going to be running through CV and interview workshop with you. I'm going to try and keep it Amazonian style as well to help you if you are interested in applying for an Amazon role. But also, I'm going to keep it wider on general interview skills as well. So, my top hints and tips for CVs is that to use data. So, in Amazon, we are very, very data-centric and we love numbers. So it's not always possible in some of the lines that you've worked on. Obviously, we don't expect you to have work experience as a graduate pathway, but use data whenever you can to back up your arguments. We love numbers. So that's one top tip. Pop them in your CVs wherever you can. An example could be if you've managed a budget of some kind, put that down on your CV because we'd love to see something like that. Be concise, so you have an average of 8 seconds to actually grasp our attention as a recruiter. And for Amazon, your CVs are checked by real humans, so that's one thing. Just be short and concise, only include what you think is relevant for that role and is really going to strike as interesting to us. We want things in chronological order, so you want things in time order from ideally the most recent things, for example, in education, your most recent degrees that you're studying, and then if you do have any work experience as well, start from your most recent and then work down. We do like to keep things in a good structure so that we can keep track of where you've been and the timeline with that. And then consistent formatting as well. So people like to use things like bold, underlining, italics. I know in my CV, I like to use bold, but when you are putting things in bold, make sure you're consistent throughout your CV. So if you're doing subheadings in bold and then your curriculum vitae is in bold underline. Keep that consistent throughout and make sure it flows naturally. Just helps us to read along, and it makes it look very well structured and nice to read. One thing we do get as well about, one question we do get is about experience again. So for our intern and graduate pathways, you don't actually need any work experience. We believe you have a lot of transferable skills that you can apply from university projects, could be things you've done in your personal life, could be hobbies, if you've been a head lifeguard or something like that. We believe that you'll have a wealth of experience in leadership generally, and you should be able to apply that not just in a work experience setting, but from your personal life, your hobbies, and your study time as well, because you do spend significant time studying. Perfect. Okay, so usually when we get questions, they are most commonly about the interviews that we have at Amazon and the interview process generally. They are different for every single role, but I'm going to focus on tech generally. Because, yep, there is multiple steps and it can be quite confusing for those that aren't familiar with Amazon. So this should hopefully help you not just in Amazon interviews, but also wider interviews as a whole. These are our 16 leadership principles. So you may not be too familiar with them, and I won't go through all the definitions because we'll be here all day. But I have highlighted some ones as some hints to you. The kinds of ones we're going to be focusing on in the interview itself when we have leadership principle-based questions. These are the kind of ones we will be asking on. And generally, they're the ones that we expect you to be able to demonstrate based on both the role you're applying for and your background experience. So, for example, frugality is more on the money and finance side, so we wouldn't be asking someone applying for a software development engineer role, for example, a question based on that, because it's not fair and it's not relevant either for your background. Perfect. So yeah, the top ones for you would be customer obsession, ownership, learn and be curious, earn trust, dive deep, deliver results. Generally for tech, they are the most important ones that come up most often. One thing I would like to say as well is that it's not always clear what leadership principle you're being asked on, which is perfectly fine. What I would do, and my top tip, I practice this myself whenever I have an Amazon-style interview, have 2 to 3 examples of projects or things that you've worked on or leadership roles you've taken in your personal life, and have them jotted down for every leadership principle. Because what it allows then is when you actually have your interview, when you get asked a question, you can instantly think, okay, they might be asking me on this. I remember that I had this down as an example, and all our interviews are virtual as well for tech side. So that's an added bonus because you can have your notes and you can have your prep in front of you. So if you get nervous, you can have a glance down, you can check what you've put, and then it will rejig your memory. So that is an added bonus. We are data-driven, again, so make sure that when you are prepping, that you are having some data down where you can, wherever applicable. It's not always applicable, and we understand that, but when you can, jot it down, because it will help then if you get asked a follow-up question based on do you have any data to back up the result, for example, you have that to hand and it's not going to throw you off. So, for Amazon, we recommend using the STAR structure. So it's situation, task, action, and result. This is generally the format that we recommend you use for the body of the answers that you're giving to the interviewer questions. And generally, it's just to help you structure them. Obviously, when you're nervous in an interview, it can be easy to miss bits out, and then the interviewer might not get a good full picture of the situation itself. So situation is where you set the scene, you add the context so they explain what position you were in and really what the issue was. A good thing as well is to talk about why you might have been in that issue in the first place. Something we love is forward thinking. It's not essential, but interviewers love it if you can relate to sort of the situation that you were in and how you could avoid it in the future once you've had your result, for example. Then you want to have the task. So what were you trying to achieve? What was your goal? The action. So when you talk about the actions, you want to say what you personally did. So we always say focus on the I, not the we. And what we mean by that is you don't want to take away the impact that you've had on a project or a task by grouping it together as a we. we understand that in university you might be involved in a lot of group projects, but in order to prevent the interviewer coming back with a question to ask, what specifically have you contributed? What specifically did you take on? Make sure you're replacing that we with I, so they can see the impact that you've had in that project, because that's what they're interested in. I know it's natural, it is quite natural, just I do it myself and I have to practice myself out of it, but it will just prevent follow-up questions and it'll sell yourself really, and that's what you need to do in an interview. Cool. And then result, last but not least, we want to see numbers, ideally, if you can. Not always possible, I understand that. But we want to see what's happened, what was the result. And if it wasn't something good and it turned out to not be the result that you wanted, that's perfectly fine. That's one thing that we actually encourage in Amazon, is for you to have that sense of continuous improvement. If you've gone out and you've tried something, it didn't give you the result that you wanted, perfectly fine. You can acknowledge that. What's next? So what are you going to do next time differently, or what are you going to try instead? So it's perfectly fine to fail. It's just carrying on with that continuous improvement side that we care about. Perfect. So, some hints and tips for the interview itself. I, again, do follow these. So you need to be talking about your understanding and your motivation for the role. So you need to make sure you've read up a bit on the role that you're actually applying for. So when it comes to your interview, you can have a chat with the interviewers about the role. And obviously, if you do have any questions and there's anything you're unsure about, you can have opportunity to ask. But you want to demonstrate your motivation in the interview as well. Because one thing we like in Amazon is drive, and we want to see that you want this job. So that's one thing to bring forward. Again, data, I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times, we love data. So make sure you've got as much as you can that's feasible in. Jot down a few examples, as I said, for each leadership principle. We call them LPs as well, you might hear us refer to them. It will just help you out a lot, especially in a virtual interview setting. If you need time to reflect on the question, or you need a couple of minutes just to collect your thoughts and think about the best answer you could put forward for that question, by all means do it. You can ask the interviewer, can I just take 2 minutes please to think about the best answer I have for this, because we would rather you put forward a strong answer than rush, put something forward and then not be 100% happy with the answer that you've given, or maybe need the interviewer to ask another question because they've not really had anything that demonstrates what they're asking for. So take the time you need, there's no rush. We understand that when you're in an interview, you're nervous. And then have some questions ready. You want to be asking your interviewers at least one question, but it just shows your interest in the role, and it's good engagement, I think, and it's a good opportunity for you as well to understand more about the role that you're applying for and what the opportunity might have. So it's always good to have questions. And then the STAR method from previous slide as well. Make sure that you're trying to follow that STAR method as best as you can. Perfect. So now we're going to be looking at the UK-specific tech opportunities that we do have. We have some very exciting opportunities. Cool. So I'm not going to read through them because we do have a wealth of opportunities in Amazon. But what I will say is that they should all be under these titles that are on screen. And what you can do is you can go onto our internal job site, you can search for these titles, or you can simply filter by student programs and then filter by tech side as well. And we will follow up with a link in the group for these opportunities for you to access. But there are both graduate and internship opportunities available as well for all of these roles, so that's very, very exciting. And I'm going to focus on one role in particular. So this is the role that I specifically recruit for. So this is the software development engineer role, or SDE as well. And a day in the life for an SDE role typically would consist of team meetings, mentoring, or as you've gotten a bit more tenure in the role, you also have the opportunity to be assigned a mentee as well, which is quite nice. You'll be involved in business projects. You'll have meetings with your key stakeholders. That will be quite regular. Obviously, there will be coding and programming involved as well. You'll be learning the products and services of AWS if you're placed in AWS's line of business. You can go for cloud practitioner certification as well. That's something that we have that opportunity for you to pursue. If you're interested, you can pair with your hiring manager. And then, of course, we have the social aspect as well, such as dinners with the team, there's always something going on in Amazon. Such a big company, there's always some kind of occasion on in our buildings. So as you can see, Amazon is more than just shopping. So you may have heard of us, from peak COVID, you might have been ordering your toilet rolls in bulk. But these are the lines of business that we have available for tech side specifically. So really exciting opportunities. We've got Amazon devices, we've got Amazon Web Services, e-commerce or consumer as well, it's also known, Kindle, digital content and publishing, operations, Amazon Entertainment, also known as Prime Video, and we have security as well. So plenty of opportunities, and I'm also going to touch on the locations that we have as well. So the UK locations we have, obviously the main one being London. It's actually the biggest headquarters that we have across EMEA, so Europe, Middle East and Africa. It's a very, very cool building. We have mini golf, ping pong, loads of stuff like that on the ground floor. It's very, very cool. We also have Cambridge. We also have Edinburgh and Bristol, and these sites are very similar as well. Not as big as the London site, with it being the biggest in EMEA, but very, very cool and fun and interactive stuff in those sites also. Cool. So, an overview of our opportunities. These are the eligibility things that we are looking for. So, for graduate opportunities, you want to have either graduated within the last 12 months or be about to graduate. For example, you're due to graduate summer 2023. You could apply for a graduate role now. Internships, you have to be currently enrolled. We don't recommend you going for an internship in your final year, just because sometimes the application process can take a couple of months, and we don't want you to feel restricted. And also, you'll be eligible if you are in your final year for a graduate role. So we'd recommend that if you get through the process quicker, and then it comes to, say, January, February time, and you've been successful at interview for a graduate role, but you want to do an internship first, we could easily move you from that role to an internship, but we couldn't move you up, if that makes sense, if you initially applied for the internship and then wanted to change to grad if time stretched too soon. So I would recommend, if you're in your final year, always apply for that grad role. And then for both, we don't need a specific programming language, but you have to be familiar with at least one of the following. So Java, C, C++, or Python. And you need to know your computer science fundamentals as well. But another question we do have very regularly is, do you have to have a computer science or related degree specifically? And the answer is no. You may have coding experience in your personal life. You may have coding experience in work that you've undertaken before study. As long as you're competent and comfortable in the coding side, and that shines through and demonstrates in the interview process and in the online assessment, which I'll touch on in a minute. Yes, you have to have a degree, but it doesn't have to be computer science related, so anyone can apply. Perfect. Okay, so some of the benefits we have, this is just to name a few, I couldn't fit them all on one page, but we do have a competitive salary and compensation package. We offer relocation packages to anyone outside of 50 miles, so that is very good as well. Obviously, we have the mentor pairing. You can have the opportunity to have a mentee, and then you're also paired with a mentor when you join, just so you have the support that you need. Program events is always something. And then professional and personal networking as well. That's one thing. I've learned as well that the company Amazon is just so big, you will meet people from all over the business. It's such a massive company. AWS certifications, that's something you guys can get as well. If you're interested in it, we can put you through them and we can help you with that. And then that goes in line again with career growth opportunities. Visa sponsorship is something that we do fortunately offer in the UK as well, so you can apply from anywhere internationally. We can provide not only a team to help you throughout the visa process, but we also fund that process as well. So that's another added bonus for Amazon. And then I wanted to touch on the timeline and the general process overview for you as well. Very similar between interns and grads, but firstly, after you apply, you'll be sent an online assessment, typically within 7 days of application. This online assessment will consist of 2 hurdles. First hurdle being a coding, task coding problem, and the second hurdle is contextual awareness. It's kind of like a work style simulation. We do send over prep materials, we offer online assessment study sessions as well that we're running this year for anyone that might think they need to brush up on some areas, or they feel like they need some prep beforehand. We do offer that. And one thing I will touch on for the SDE role specifically as well is that we have 1 panelist for internship opportunities and 3 for graduate opportunities as well. So again, reflecting back that the graduate process is a little bit more difficult than internship, so that's why it would be easier to step down to an internship if you did decide to pursue further study, which we do have a lot of people do. So if you're considering a master's, but it's not set in stone yet, we would still recommend you go for the graduate opportunity, because we can switch you down to an internship if needed. So after you've done the online assessment, then if successful, you'll be invited to a virtual panel. And then the outcome of that virtual panel, you'll get that within 5 business days. So that's something we call our 2 and 5 promise. So you will find out within 2 business days for a phone screen, and in the tech side, 5 business days for an actual virtual interview. Perfect. That's it from me. Thank you so much. I know that's a lot of information to digest, but hopefully you found the session useful, and hopefully you will apply. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Clary. We had a question in about visas as well, so it's fantastic. So many students have registered to watch the event today, either live or on demand, which is fabulous. But that has been, those students coming from overseas have been quite keen to know about working visas. So thank you so much for providing that information. So we're joined next by Jaguar Land Rover again, who will be sharing some insights into what it's like to work at Jaguar Land Rover. And we're joined again by Joanna's going to be joined by 2 of her colleagues. Let me just pass you over the... Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to do a bit of insight now into us at Jaguar Land Rover. So I'm Sam. I lead on our university engagement in early careers recruitment, so focused on our undergraduate and graduate programs. We're going to go as fast as we can with this session, but we'll hear a little bit from Jo, who you've heard from already, in terms of some insight into her career as a graduate here. We're also going to hear from Karen and her journey. And then finally, I'll end by talking a little bit more about our opportunities and application process. So without further ado, over to you, Jo.
Thanks, Sam. So I guess to start off with, I guess in your position, I think it will be 2 years ago now. So I've been on the grad scheme for just over a year. So I've just gone into my 2nd year. I did a 4-year integrated master's in engineering science at Oxford. And I guess the key focuses around this, it was quite a broad course. I would say the final 2 years, my module choices went more towards mechanical and civil. And I did do the one automotive engineering module that we did have. So in my final summer that I was on the university scheme, then I did an internship at a company called Zenzik, which focused, it's essentially a think tank for autonomous vehicles. So it's really looking at the strategy as we go into fully autonomous vehicles with all the different levels and ADAS, and how we need to pull together the government, industry and academia to achieve that. And I think that was really, so it was that kind of overall industry change and flux and really exciting period that we're moving into with that, as well as electrification and the kind of drive towards sustainability that kind of pulled me towards JLR, despite not having a huge interest in cars themselves, although that is growing, being at JLR and particularly with our products as well that are absolutely incredible. So that was what really motivated me to go for the grad scheme at JLR. It's a really good 2-year scheme, and there's lots of development opportunity. You get placed in a home team, and Sam's going to go into more depth of this later on, so I'm going to sort of talk more around my own experience. But the really unique thing that I would say about the JLR grad scheme is that you can sort of move quite flexibly around the company. So I've been trying to focus my placement, so I've based in engineering operations, but I did 4 months in powertrain and batteries, CAE integration, and in a more technical kind of created a digital twin for thermal propagation. I then moved into the incredibly exciting area that's reimagined Jaguar. So with Jaguar going all electric by 2025 and working on the sustainability roadmap for that, and now into sustainability as a role. So it's really, really flexible. You can really accomplish what you want to get out of it. And that's kind of, I guess, my key takeaway would be that sort of the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. Whenever I've asked people in the company for help, whenever I've proposed a new initiative, not one single person has blanked me or said no. I've only sort of been pushing on open doors the whole way. And I think the company is really keen, particularly to kind of support the development of grads and kind of retain us in the business and give us those opportunities to grow. And you can have sort of as much, or I guess as little, if you're inclined that way, responsibility in the company as you're comfortable with. And I've very much gone for the more responsibility side of things. And that's kind of led me to take on quite a few additional roles as well. So the early careers community, which is really, really strong and hopefully ascending to even greater heights. There's lots of social environment, lots of placement, shadowing opportunities. So we really do try and support and engage the whole network. And that is open to everyone when they join on an early careers scheme. So I'm going to stop waffling and I'm going to pass over to Karen and let her have her moment in the spotlight.
Hi, my name is Karen DeMaillet. I'm what's known as a head of process chain for 2 of the vehicle lines at Jaguar Land Rover. But I thought what I wanted to touch on really is I'm slightly at the other end of my career. So I graduated 35 years ago. So they've changed physics since I did it at university. I took part in a graduate scheme, but for an aerospace company, GEC Avionics. I think the graduate training schemes across most of the big companies are really valuable because they give you a broad insight into what the company's about, what skills you require, and things that you need to learn to develop as an engineer throughout your career. So I worked in aerospace and automotive for about 12 years, and then I moved across as a software engineer. And then I moved across to another company, a professional audio recording company. And I worked there for another 13 years, primarily as an engineering manager. So extended my career, my skill set into man management. We also were manufacturing not just the software, but we were building the hardware, manufacturing the components on site. So it was a much broader remit that I was involved in. From there, I moved back into automotive with Jaguar Land Rover, and I've been there for about 9 years now. Primarily working on the good old F-Type, which is my favourite sports car of all time, and I dare anybody to disagree with me. My role there was really as a project lead for the electrical content in the cars, so anything from the electric windows going up and down, being able to sort of click your key fob to open the car, walk up to the car, and the car think, oh, it's Karen, I'll let her in. And to getting your car to talk to your phone and all the other jazzy things they do these days. About 18 months ago, I changed my role into something which we call head of process chain, which is not a terribly descriptive title at all. What it means is that for the 2 vehicle lines that I work on, I'm really looking to maximise the commercial capacity or commercial profitability of the car. So I'm looking to increase the money we make from the cars, obviously, but also try and make it fit what our customers really want. So trying to make it fit what our customers need it to do, what they're prepared to pay for it to do, and trying to maximise the profitability of the car. So that's sort of my just whistle-stop tour through 35 years of engineering. There were 4 things that I wanted to draw out from having listened to other people talking today and listening to the guys as well. The first thing I would say is that going into any career, you've got to do what you like doing. At the end of the day, you're going to spend an awful lot of your waking hours going to work and doing this. And I can promise you there is nothing more soul-destroying than going to a job that you don't enjoy. So it's really important that you find yourself a role that you enjoy doing. And I would say probably that's the most important thing you need to think about. The second thing is don't do it on your own. Make sure you network, find like-minded people who are interested in the same things as you, people who are probably having the same problems as you, people that you can share your successes with. But it's so much easier and nicer if somebody can sort of, you've got a network of friends and support around you to make this happen. The third thing I would say is about opportunities. I mean, I've done a number of different things. I've worked in a number of different companies. I would never have thought when I left university writing software that kept aeroplanes in the air that I would then be working on professional mixing desks and things for recording studios. But I think if you remember that engineering is about problem solving, those skills are hugely transferable, and you can move into many, many different what's the word? Industries. Sorry. When you get to my age, you forget things. The last thing I was going to say is that as a woman in engineering, as I say, I've been doing it for quite a long time, things have changed a lot. things have got a lot better than they used to be. I'm no longer the person who has to be the one who books the room and takes the minutes because I'm the woman. I don't get called darling anymore by people who think they're really quite smart. So we've got over that one. I would say at Jaguar Land Rover, it's possibly the best place I've worked to be a woman in engineering. It's hugely supported. There are none of those questions where you sort of think, well, should I apply for that? Oh, God, there's all blokes applying for it. It isn't like that now. The office that I sit in, I would say, it's not 50-50, but I would say it's probably 40% women in the office that I sit in now. And that is a huge improvement to where my first job, where I was like the only one. I wasn't allowed to work evening and night shifts because I was the only woman on the shift, and that wasn't allowed. So things have moved a long way in the right direction. And I think JR are a very supportive company. There is nothing that stands in your way around those sort of what we call protected characteristics. Okay, makes sense?
Thank you. No, perfect. Really, really good overview. Great to see, obviously, from you, Jo, in terms of you're on the graduate programme. You've been here a little bit over a year now, and really good to see how that journey's been and everything that you're getting involved in, and obviously Karen for yourself, been with the company for a few more years, but all of the exciting things you've achieved. And it really just shows where you're starting in these early careers positions, whether that be as an undergraduate, a graduate, or something else, where that career can take you. So really fantastic. Conscious of time, so I want to just talk to you a little bit more about the programs that we've got available at the moment. I'll start with undergraduate programs. You can see them all on screen at the moment. So lots of different areas across engineering, manufacturing, commercial, HR, loads of different areas for placements. All of these placements are 12 months. So first years and second year students, these are the placements that are available for you. And if anyone's in any doubt, if they're thinking, don't know whether I'd want to do a placement, or maybe I'll just go to final year and finish my degree, definitely recommend doing a placement. I've done one myself, and it got me to where I am now. And it really gives you that skills, breadth of knowledge and experience that you need to accelerate your career in the industry. In terms of our graduate programs, again, you can see all of these on screen now. Similar areas, but there are a few more programs available on the graduate schemes compared to undergraduate. These are 2-year courses, and there's tons of development you will get in these courses. So, for example, there'll be lots of core skills development. You'll work with one of our training provider on some of this. Obviously, you're going to get lots of technical expertise as well by working with your manager, working with teams, working in all the various tasks and responsibilities that you'll get on the programme. And there's a chance to then get involved in things like the Early Careers Socials and the Early Careers Hub and all of the great things that they do too. So in terms of our application process, it's a 4-stage process. You'll be pleased to know that we have removed CVs and cover letters from this year. So we found that we just weren't reviewing them. We've got an online application, they were supplementary, and they weren't being reviewed, so what's the point? So we took them out this year, which I think people will be really pleased to hear. So it starts with an online application you can make through our careers website. One of the key parts there is to make sure that you are really paying attention to the motivation statement that is part of that application, so really selling why you want to apply for that specific role. The next stage is online testing. So that's kind of the typical psychometric testing that you probably see across other companies and maybe you've experienced before. But we'll give you plenty of preparation, guides and practice tests to be able to complete that. Then you'll move to an assessment centre. That's going to consist of a motivational interview, a behavioural interview, and a form of a presentation as well, which is going to be virtual this year. So makes the ease of access easier, hopefully, for people. And then the final stage is offer. So if you get through all of that process, you will get your offer. And then between then and joining us on day one for your induction, there'll be plenty of exciting things that you'll be part of. We'll run insight events where you can come on site, you can meet the team, you can meet your manager, and there'll also be other opportunities to get involved and stay connected to Jaguar Land Rover throughout that process. So I know there's been some hints and tips already throughout the day, but just to add a few more, really make sure that you fill in all those application fields and reread your application before submitting. If you write that motivation statement and you just say, I love cars, or I really like Jaguar Land Rover, I study this and I think it would be cool to work there. You know, it's nice, but is it going to get you through compared to some of the other candidates that spend more time and really delve into their passions and experience and skills and how they can relay that into why they're applying for that specific role? Possibly not. So really make sure that you sell yourself within that motivation statement. And then in terms of interviews, assessment centres and all of that stuff, make sure that you really research the company and the role that you apply for. You can only apply for one role, so that is really important that you understand exactly what that role offers. You understand your experience, your skills, what you've done in the past, and how that can be relevant to the particular role you're applying for, because that's going to help you excel in those interviews. And I know it's mentioned earlier, but STAR is a really, really good format to use in answering those questions. You can also, if you really want to exceed, you can add another R to the end of that and reflect and think about, you know, if I was to do that again, what would I do differently next time? That will definitely wow the interviewer, and they'll be like, I was going to ask that question, but you've already answered it. So it's going to start you off on the right foot with that one. And finally, if you want to find out more, we've got lots of social content going out at the moment across the channels you can see on screen. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can scan the QR code that's on site as well, and you can find out about all of our current opportunities that are available as applications are now open for those undergraduate and graduate programs. We are attending multiple events such as this one, and also careers fairs and some other events across the next few months. So if you want to catch us at another event, you can see those on the website too. And we also have a live chat 1 till 3 every Friday, so you can ask specific questions to our team and we'll be on hand to support you with those. But yeah, other than that, thank you for joining our Insight session, and any questions, feel free to fire them into the chat because we'll be on for the rest of the today's events to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's fantastic that every Friday there's the 1 till 3 live Q&A that you do as well. That's great support. Thank you so much. There are lots of events happening right now. We are in peak graduate application season. There's events happening on campus, there's virtual events. So my advice as well with that is just attend as many as you can. It's all great experience. And if you really like employers, follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on all of their channels, connect with their early talent team as well. So that, you also mentioned about mentors, the fact that you get assigned mentors when you join your organisations is amazing, and it brings me nicely onto our next session, which is, sadly, Emily can't be with us here at LSBU today, but she's talking about the importance of mentorship to be able to go into a leadership role. And some of you may have only just been at university for the last couple of months and you're right at the start of your degree. Others are finishing master's programs. And right now, all you're thinking about is, well, my first graduate opportunity. But what we're trying to do here is really try to get you to think about the bigger picture, think about where you would like to see yourself in years to come and the steps that you may need to get there. So here's Emily with some advice.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily and I head up the marketing for March 8. A huge thanks to Amanda for giving us the opportunity to tune in virtually today. I hope you've all had a lovely event. Just before we start, a quick pop quiz question. Does anyone know what's so important about the date March 8th? March 8th, of course, is International Women's Day and the very reason for what we do here at March 8th. For some context, at our core, March 8 is a digital bi-monthly Women in Business magazine. We also host events, monthly roundtable discussions, and a global mentorship program with the aim to inspire the next generation of female leaders, which could be you. That's what I'm talking to you all about today. Mentorship is a pivotal part of career progression, personal development, and community building. Think about someone who inspires you. Think about someone who has achieved something incredible, whether that's in business or personal life. Likelihood is they haven't done this alone. Having someone to lean on, to guide you and push your aspirations is extremely important to achieving career goals. It's all about building up a relationship and a knowledge pool to do the impossible. The March 8 Mentorship Programme pairs professional women at the start of their careers with high achievers at the top of theirs. Sharing knowledge and storytelling is the most important tool to fuel the next cohort of women in leadership, women in male-dominated industries, as well as raising the voices of underrepresented groups. So now I'd just like to take a moment of your time to show you a video of one of our previous mentors, Pamela Laird, who is the CEO and founder of Moxie Loves, who you might recognise from Dragon's Den and some of her products in store in the UK.
My name's Pamela Laird. I'm the founder of Moxie Loves. I'm a beauty founder. I've been in the industry since I was 18 and I founded my company in 2018. When I started my business, I felt having my mum as my inspiration was a huge, like it was cemented to me that I can do this too. I think I definitely felt a little bit of community there, knowing that she had gone through starting her own business, 20 something years later, she's still here. And so that to me was, you can do it. But what I realized as I started on the journey of being a female entrepreneur in a different space than my mom had, and I move into new circles, I realized how little women there are and how difficult that can be. And not everybody has a mom who started their own business. Not everybody has that person and that mini community, if you like. So I've really tried to open up and do as much networking as I can. I think women need to come out more. We need to network more. We need to be the ballsy people, going to those after work things, talking to each other, because, we need more women in those rooms, is my opinion. And so I'm lucky to have a small community of women around me, but I know not everybody has that privilege.
Welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed that short video. Of course, Pamela highlights why we need mentors to support us and guide us on our career journeys. If you're interested in learning more or becoming a mentee, please scan the QR code on the screen or visit march8.com. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear from many of you. If anyone has questions at all or want to learn more, or even if you're starting to build a network, then please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name's Emily Cook. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Hello, welcome back. That was really great words of advice from March 8 there. And it is really important to get a role model. We've heard quite a few of the companies so far have told us that they do a buddy up role model buddy up graduates with role models within their organisation, which is amazing. But there's nothing stopping you going external to your organisations and joining other networks and communities and finding role models there too. So on the screen now, just during that very short break, you will have seen the information about the competition. You've heard Alex Knight talking about the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy. If you would like to learn and understand how to shine as a visible role model and enter that competition, then all you need to do is email why you would like to take part in the course to hello@campusmedia.co.uk. Tell us what course you're studying and what year of graduation you are. So I would like to introduce the final skills workshop, actually, from a company called Tech She Can. Does a huge amount of work in schools with younger children, just echoing what Alex mentioned about there's no such thing as too early and being visible role models. So I'd like to introduce Becky Patel.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just go to the next slide. So as Amanda said, my name is Becky Patel. I am Head of Early Education for a charity called Tech She Can. My background is teaching. I was actually a primary school teacher for just over 8 years and a secondary school teacher for 2 years in the West Midlands in Coventry. Now, Tech She Can as a charity itself, we are a fully funded charity by all of those organisations you can see on the bottom of the screen. So Google, Morgan Stanley, Nationwide, PwC, NatWest. So lots of your potential future employers as well. Now, Tech She Can and our vision, and this underpins everything that it is what we do. So our vision is for women to be equal members in creating and developing the new tech, business and products that will shape the future of all of our world. Now, you've heard lots of statistics today, and I'm going to provide you with a few more, but basically, gender diversity is far from equal in the world of technology and STEM in general. Our research, and PwC's research actually, was a big piece of research called Time to Close the Gender Gap. They found that only 3% of women would actually even consider a career in technology, and they were graduates just like yourselves. We also know that only 10% of leaders in tech are women, and only 22% in England, and if you're elsewhere in the UK, only 22%, or a quarter in Scotland and Wales as well, of schools do not offer GCSE computing science or higher level computer science. What this means is there are millions of children across the UK that even if they want to take tech to another level when they're in year 9 and above, they can't because they don't have a teacher that will allow them to take computing any further than that. And then the bottom statistic on the slide that you can see there is something that children often find a bit scary, and when we talk to parents they do, but 65%, some research shows even more than that, up to 70%, of children aged 10 right now will actually work in a job that doesn't currently exist yet. So when they graduate in 10 to 11 years' time, we don't know what a good 3/4 of them will actually be doing. And this is mainly due to how fast technology is advancing. So even if they want to be the doctors, the nurses, the teachers of the future, the landscape of their roles will look very different too. What they will do day to day will look very different because of how technology is advanced in those sectors. And that bottom statistic, as Head of Early Education for Tech She Can, is where I focus on. So what I'm going to do today is take you through very briefly what the charity do, and then talk to you about Tech We Can, which is all of our schoolwork that we do with children, and give you a tangible way that you as an individual can get involved with the charity as well and inspire the next generation to follow in your footsteps. So, Tech She Can as a charity, we work on 3 different programs, 3 different areas. So we have all of our Tech We Can resources. Now you can probably tell from the name, Tech We Can is for boys and girls. Everything we do for children aged 5 to 15 is for boys and girls, and it is delivered by males and females as well. So if you're a female on the call, fantastic. If you're a male, you are more than welcome to volunteer as a champion as well. So we have equal amount of males and female champions. So we have Tech We Can is what I'll take you through, which has lots of different resources. But then we also have a whole part of our website dedicated to visible role models. They are young women working in technology who have recorded TikTok-style short videos for us that children across the UK log in and watch to find out what are they doing, how did they get there, what's fun about their role. And they are from a breadth of different organisations that we have that support the charity. Now, we have a set of videos for 8 to 14-year-olds because what you talk to a 14-year-old about in terms of a career is very different to what you talk to a 15-plus-year-old. So some of those videos might actually be interesting to you because the 15-plus role model videos are designed for anyone, a young, an older child or an adult. So please have a look at those as well and see if you want to log into any of those videos, have a watch and see how those women suggest you get into their careers at many different organisations. And then finally, we have a whole team working on pathways. So this is helping people later in their life, so not just children at school, access technology. So we have Career Insight Days, where we are taking students later, so GCSE students, into organisations. So our first one coming up is with Deutsche Bank, for example. Now, when you ask students what they do at Deutsche Bank, they'll say finance and maths, that's what you've got to be good at to work there. We actually take them into organisations like that and show them for the day the breadth and wealth of different kind of creative careers also they can do, and all the tech careers they can do in companies like that. And then finally, we have 3 apprenticeships about to launch. They're all level 4 apprenticeships. One will focus on women of Black heritage. One will focus on returners and pivoters, so perhaps women later in their career, maybe after maternity, that would like to retrain into technology. And one will focus on reskillers, people who haven't done anything in technology at university maybe, but would like to retrain into it. Now, what's unique about Tech She Can as a charity is we say that we have something for every moment that matters across a woman or a girl's life. Whether you're young and deciding what you want to do, you're already in higher education and you'd like some advice and tips, or you're later in your life and career and you've just had a child maybe and you want to retrain into technology after maternity leave. We have something that you can engage with that will help you gain a role in tech. Now, Tech She Can itself has been on a journey all the way from a charter right up to the independent charity that we are now. It started in 2017 as Tech She Can, the charter. It was a piece of research that PwC did called Time to Close the Gender Gap. It was commissioned by our current CEO, Sheridan Ash. Now, Sheridan did something quite unique at the time, which was say, I know we found this research, we found that hardly any women are considering a career in tech, but I don't just want to start another initiative at PwC. What I want to do is work together with our clients and our competitors on this, because this is not an issue, an organisational issue. This is a societal issue. And actually lots of separate people are working on this, gender diversity in technology, but the only way we can really make any headway is to collaborate and work together. If you do a great apprenticeship, you have a great job advert, you've got a great school programme, let's share that best practice because it's society that we're helping, not just one organisation. She started with 18 people, 18 organisations that said, yeah, do you know what, we want to work together on this. And today we now have 243 members that support Tech She Can, organisations of all sorts, not just technology companies. The middle part of that entire timeline is how we trialled and implemented Tech We Can. So when the charity first approached me and we talked about what we can do to inspire the next generation of children, I was currently teaching in a school in the 8th most deprived area in the UK, in the West Midlands, and the boys were not aspirational either. So when we talked about doing just Tech She Can lessons, we changed that and we said, actually, we really want the boys to understand what the girls can do as well. And the boys didn't know what they could be. They weren't aspirational either. So we wanted to make it inclusive to all. So Tech We Can is female-friendly lesson plans, but they are delivered by males and females to both boys and girls. So what do we mean by female-friendly? What we mean is the lessons are full of them seeing diverse role models and hearing from lots of different people. And they have lots of examples of tech for good, because our research shows that women and girls tend to go towards jobs that they can clearly see do good for society. So doctors, nurses, teachers, childcare. They didn't see how technology or even STEM could relate to that. So we show that in every one of our lessons. We show them how tech can do good for the world. Now, Tech We Can, that's what I want to focus on today. So our early education, delivered by males and females to both boys and girls. So first of all, why? So as Amanda said previously, and we were talking about this with other speakers, Why speak to children really young and be a visible role model to children that are really young? Well, everything we aim to do for children in our lives is to help them have a happy and successful future, whether you're their auntie, their uncle, their godparent, their mother, their dad, their grandparent, whatever you're trying to do, their teacher, you're trying to prepare them to be happy and successful adults. That future, though, that we're preparing them for is more unknown than it ever has been. So we need to help them keep an eye on how that future is changing so they're best prepared to go out into the world. Secondly, you can't be what you can't see. I know you've heard that already today. So you literally can't be what you can't see. If you work in technology, you're quite an invisible role model. What we mean by that is children use things every day that people in technology create. They use their iPads, they play on their PlayStations, they log into their Xbox, they use their computers at school. But they never stop and question who's behind that? Who made that? Who made this website? Who's designed this app? When you ask them what they want to be, they'll say doctors, policemen, nurses, construction workers, because they're people that they see, they're people that have a uniform or they play a role in their lives. They can't aspire to be. They don't say, look at that very smart UX designer, look at that app developer, look at that software developer. They don't say that because they can't see you. So a huge part of Tech We Can is about making you visible, the people that work in technology. The third thing, is the computing curriculum. It is getting better, hence why there's so many of you on the call today. Your computing education is much better than when I started teaching over 15 years ago, but jobs in tech are going like this, which means we need to try and close that gap. It's getting better, but not quite good enough yet. And then we've done the large percentage, and no matter actually the career these children want to go into, even if they do want to be the doctors, nurses and teachers of the future, Tech We Can will give them an advantage because their role, no matter what it is, will include a huge element of technology. And then finally, this is most important and a point that I always say, we need to show children how their passions could lead them into technology. For those children that love swimming, rugby and football, how could that lead into tech? For those children that love art and being creative, how could that lead into tech? For those children that love helping other people, how could that lead into tech? We need to start with their passions. This is my favourite slide, which sums up Tech We Can. This was a year 8 child, so she was 13. I asked the whole class to draw, what does a worker in technology look like? This was her quote, Miss, this is a white guy. He lives in his mum's basement. He hacks into the Pentagon. He's got 16 screens. He's boring and he's antisocial. She said, you know the guy off Jurassic Park that runs away from the flappy dinosaurs? That's him. That's who works in technology. After only 3 lessons, I asked them to draw it again. She said, this is me, miss. I'm a social media manager for Facebook. I'm funny, I'm kind. Here's my afro hair. I spend time with my friends. She did 3 things that is everything Tech We Can is about. Firstly, she knew of a job that never existed, social media manager for Facebook. She never knew she could do that. That's the same class, by the way, where a boy in Google said, do people sit behind the bar and answer the questions for you? Is that how they do it? No idea how that actually worked. Second thing is she saw the connection between English and tech. She was a fantastic linguist. I was her English teacher. And she saw that connection now. Her strength in English could lead her to tech. And thirdly, she drew herself. It's now an achievable career for her. But we're not here with Tech We Can to persuade everyone to go into technology because that wouldn't make a diverse society of the future. What we do want to do, though, is help them make an informed choice, help their careers advisors, their parents, their teachers, and them understand what's out there for them. So these are the resources that we have. We have animations for 5-year-olds where Katie and Tex go on adventures. They're not designed to give careers advice for 5-year-olds. They're designed to get children to be inquisitive about things like cashless payments, drones, all this tech they're going to see in their life. How does it work? And show them that somebody actually made it. We then have on-demand lessons that you can click and watch. With the children, we have lesson packs and we have champions, which is what I briefly want to cover to end now. So all of these resources on techshecan.org, if you click on the Tech We Can tab, there's no login, no registration. All of this is fully available for you to access at any time or any of your any children you have in your lives, any teachers you know. Champions. Champions are people that hear me do this talk and they say, do you know what, that sounds great. How could I individually get involved? Well, you can as a champion. And here are some pictures of our champions out and about. Champions are volunteers who are fully trained using our resources to go out into schools, primary schools and the start of secondary, because we also do year 7 and 8, or that is S1 and S2 if you're Scottish based. They go out into schools virtually or in person and they deliver the sessions to children. Few things I wanted to point out on these pictures is you have this isn't something you have to do on your own. Champions is a volunteering opportunity you can do as a team. The team in the top corner there are actually a team from the Glasgow office, PwC office, talking to a school in the Shetland Isles, which is hundreds of miles away. So those children, there was actually only 12 children in the whole school. They were on a small farming village in the middle of an island, and they were managing to have an inspirational session with 3 PwC workers together. Ajesh, in the top picture there with his 2 screens, he's actually had a back operation recently, so this is a really inclusive volunteering opportunity because you can do it from home. He loves the fact he can still give his time even though he's at home. Abby, in the bottom corner with the children in the yellow uniform, she was a bit nervous to start with, so she went in person and did a small group. She's now on, I think, her 8th session. And then finally, the bottom 2 pictures. That's before and after an assembly. We asked the children who thinks tech sounds like an interesting place to work. The left-hand picture is how many you had before. This is Jack, one of our champions, so about 10 people. Afterwards, after only a 25-minute virtual assembly, which was fully made for him, that's the effect that Jack had. Almost 90% of the children saying, do you know what, Jack? Sounds pretty interesting to work in tech. I would love to do that, actually. How do I get involved? So I don't know of many other volunteering opportunities where you could give so little of your time, because you're very busy students with your studies, but half an hour virtually, for example, and have that potential effect. There'll be children in that room that probably put their hand up just to please, but there will be some children who think, actually, do you know what, that's really sparked something for me. We've reached over, that's increased actually, 11,500 children in the last few months with champions all over the UK and beyond actually, because this is a globally available website. So if you're elsewhere and you're not in the UK, you can still access these resources. And finally, I just want to show you where you can get them all. So if you're interested and you think being a champion sounds interesting, you just go to the Contact Us part of the page, and please do have a look at the resources and share it with any teachers or children in your networks. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Becky. That's brilliant. And yet another opportunity for you to be able to pay it forward and give some of your time, learn how to be a role model to others. We're often in conversation with students who don't feel like they've got anything to give because they don't have work experience, they've not yet finished their degree. But you are a role model already. You've done the hardest bit. You've chosen a degree where you're a minority in the classroom and you're on that course. You might just be finishing that course now. So please do look this up. I'm sure Becky will be posting a link to that in the chat now so you can find out all about it. So our final employer insight session before we head into our panel discussion is with MI5, MI6 and GCHQ. And we have Kim, who's within recruitment at MI5, who is going to be in the chat now to answer any questions that you have. This is a recording that you will see, but Kim is live in the chat to answer your questions.
Hello. We're really excited to give you an insight into what it's like to work at MI5, MI6 and GCHQ. Before we dive straight in, we'll just explain what each intelligence service does. In a nutshell, MI5 gather intelligence from within the UK, MI6 gather intelligence from overseas, and GCHQ bring intelligence and technology together. Together, we form the UK's intelligence services. We work together to protect the UK from a range of serious threats, everything from terrorism to organised crime to cybercrime and espionage. In this session, you're going to see all about our people and why they choose to work here. And you'll also find out what you can do here and how you can do it. But we don't just want you to take it from us. So throughout this presentation, you'll be hearing from real graduates and their first-hand experiences. To successfully protect the UK, we need fresh thinking, different perspectives, and a wide range of talents. So there's no one type of person who works here. And because some of our roles are quite unique, we don't always require people to have previous experience. It's a level playing field, where everyone is respected, valued, and listened to. So the only thing that every person has in common is difference. But don't take it from us. Let's hear from some of our recent grads.
I love getting out of my bike and having some time to myself. Even though I'm a part-time carer at home, flexible working means I can still find time to do that. My whole team are really understanding, so balancing my career with being a carer and still enjoying my hobbies has been easier than I ever expected.
I grew up in a single-parent household and benefited from free school meals. I know how important it is to give back, so when I'm not bargain hunting in a record store, I spend my weekends volunteering with a homeless charity. That's one of the things I love about working for the UK Intelligence Services, the fact that you're helping others.
I did a joint humanities degree, so I'm used to appreciating things from all kinds of perspectives. It's so nice to be surrounded by people who also value different opinions and personalities. I'm a gay woman, and I've always been accepted and included by everyone in the UK Intelligence Services. I've made so many new friends through the LGBTQ+ affinity group, and I feel completely settled.
I'm really into team sports like football. It's because I love working with other people, especially when we're all pulling together for the same reason. I assumed that the UK Intelligence Services would be quite a lonely, serious and intimidating place to work. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I wish I'd known earlier what a diverse, inclusive and friendly place it is.
So, what can you do at the UK Intelligence Services? Well, that depends on your interests, passions and skill set. We can offer lots of different opportunities. For some roles, you'll need a specific degree. But for others, we're flexible. It mostly comes down to your potential. That's what we'll really look for. You'll see that we offer a variety of structured programs and specific graduate roles. We also offer internships for students who are in years 2 or 3 of uni. No matter which option you might choose, you'll have plenty of on-the-job training and support from your team. Let's go through exactly what's on offer, starting with graduate programs. At MI5, you can join the London site on the Business Enablers Entry Scheme, earning £33,350, which rises to £36,053 after 1 year. You can also join MI5 in London on the Intelligence and Data Analyst Development Programme, earning £33,350, which rises to £36,053 after a year. Or MI5 also offer the Intelligence Officer Development Programme in London. You can earn £33,350, which rises to £36,053 after 1 year. And finally, you can join the Technology Graduate Development Programme at MI5 in London. The starting salary is £36,159, which rises to £39,091 after 1 year. We also offer some graduate roles. At MI6, you could become a Business Support Officer in London and earn £30,446. Or you can join GCHQ in Cheltenham as a Cyber Operations Specialist, earning £34,831. Plus, you'll get an extra recruitment bonus. At GCHQ in Cheltenham and Manchester, you can thrive as an Intelligence Analyst, earning £30,831. At MI6 in London, you could use your skills to become an Intelligence Officer, earning between £35,524 to £44,903. Or join GCHQ and become an Infrastructure Support Engineer in London. You'll earn £34,304 in this role. All 3 services, MI5, MI6 and GCHQ, also look for language specialists in Cheltenham, London and Manchester. This has a salary between £30,200 to £35,185. GCHQ also offer a Maths and Cryptography Specialist role in Cheltenham, where you'll earn £28,804. Or, lastly, you could earn between £35,828 to £38,521 as a Graduate Software Data and Test Engineer at GCHQ in London. We also offer some internships. So you could join MI5 and GCHQ on the procurement internship for a year. In London, you'll earn £26,210, and in Cheltenham, you'll earn £23,360. On the GCHQ Cyber Insights Summer School, you'll earn £300 per week. This runs for 10 weeks in Cheltenham. Or join MI5 and MI6 on the Intelligence Officer Diversity Internship in London. You'll earn £5,242.01 over 11 weeks. Finally, MI5 offer a tech internship which runs over 11 weeks. If you join, you'll earn £6,249.99 and be based in London. So it's all up for grabs. Please visit our websites for more details about the roles, programs, and internships. So that's a flavour of the kind of jobs you can do. And just like how there's no one type of person who works here, there's no one single reason why we all chose to work here. The UK Intelligence Services are proud to focus on making sure everyone feels confident, comfortable, and able to bring their whole self to work. We recognise that working at the UK Intelligence Services brings with it a lot of responsibility. That's why we have some great support networks in place. So no matter your background or identity, there's a group of like-minded people ready to welcome you. We're passionate about making sure everyone feels confident, comfortable, and able to bring their whole self to work. We have a whole range of dedicated communities across MI5, MI6, and GCHQ, covering everything from social mobility, disability, and women in tech, through to Pride, LGBTQ+, and gender networks. Our affinity groups provide advice and support, host socials, and make recommendations to the UK Intelligence Services. And on top of these, there's a whole range of social groups. So if you're into films or footy, crafts or chess, there's something for you. Let's hear why Effie loves our networks.
I'm currently the chair of one of our gender networks. It's a role that I love doing. Not only do I get to meet new people, but I'm actively championing and working towards gender equality in my area.
Learning and development is a huge part of working here. It's how we continue to do our jobs effectively and keep up with the threats we face. So we'll encourage you to develop and improve new skills, both professionally and personally. Your manager will work with you to establish a set of interesting and challenging goals, and then they'll help you achieve them. We offer dedicated mentoring, line management, and on-the-job learning. In many of our roles, we'll even give you the chance to gain professional qualifications and complete external learning. And because it's good to learn anything new, it doesn't always have to be relevant to your role. So if you want to try something completely different, that's great. And if you want to leave us, dedicated teams will support you to do that.
I love that there are loads of opportunities up for grabs. I'm someone who enjoys variety, so it keeps me on my toes. I really like that everything isn't just based around professional qualifications and classroom training courses. You can shadow others and go along to talks. It's a great way of constantly bettering your knowledge.
With an induction and a dedicated buddy, you'll quickly settle in. And you'll find out that flexible working is a huge perk. It means you'll have a great work-life balance and get the most out of your career and life outside work. But we know that different people need different types and levels of support. So during regular one-to-one meetings, you'll have the chance to ask for any help, whether it's professional or personal, for physical health or mental health. And with dedicated well-being teams on site, there's always advice and guidance to hand. We also offer different types of working patterns. Working compressed hours gives you the option to make your days longer, but have more time off. Part-time working gives you the chance to find a balance that's right for you. And with flexi-time, you'll keep track of any additional hours you work outside of your core hours. You might use these to start later, leave earlier, or take extra days off. Corey's recently benefited from the support we offer. Let's hear more from him.
I've been struggling with my mental health, but my manager has been hugely supportive. I feel like I can talk openly, and I've been encouraged to work in a way which suits me. I also love how much appreciation people give each other here. I was recently working on a busy project where we had to share resources. We had some great feedback, just thanking us and highlighting the importance of what we were doing. It makes you feel seen and heard.
We all work here because we want to have a positive impact and do something we never thought we could. But there are lots of other reasons too. There are lots of official benefits in place, like competitive salaries and impressive learning and development opportunities. But others, like affinity networks, social groups, and on-site restaurants and gyms, help us to make time for ourselves and others. Our work is important, but so are your family, friends, and other passions. All these benefits help us to create an open and respectful culture. Lily tells us how our benefits have helped her.
There's a dedicated wellbeing team who you can contact if you're having a tough time. I can't tell you how valuable this was when I was first coming to terms with my gender identity. All brilliant and lovely people.
So, hopefully you're feeling inspired to apply for one of our roles. So just how does it work? Depending on the role you apply for, the application process is a little different. But there are a few stages that you can expect to go through, including online questions and application, remote interviews, and attending assessment centres and final interviews. If you receive a conditional offer, you'll begin the developed vetting process. This is how you'll gain the highest form of security clearance. It can be a fairly lengthy process. From start to finish, the average length is between 6 to 9 months. But that's because we have to be really thorough. Everyone who has been where you are now will tell you that it's worth the wait.
When it came to applying for a job, I was my own worst enemy. I had a mystical view of what the role would be like, and I almost convinced myself I wouldn't be able to do the job. But I'm so glad I applied.
The best prep you can do is to read any information that gets sent to you and do as much research as possible. Find out about our mission and the way we work. The more prepared you feel, the more confident you'll feel.
Lastly, we hope that you've seen a role that inspires you and that you'll be joining us in the future. Have a look at our websites for any further information and look out for any more presentations we might be holding. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much. That was really great insights, actually. There's so much secrecy around these organisations, so to have it put so simply and clearly what each organisation stands for is really useful. Hopefully you've been intrigued by that, and Kim is in the chat answering questions and posting links to where you can find out more information as well. So we're moving on to our final session now, which is the employer panel discussion, and we're joined by some of the employers that have been featured already, really diverse in terms of the different types of companies they are as well. And we're joined by Alex from STEMAZING, who is going to be our panel host. So I will pass you right over.
Thank you very much. Right, welcome back to this live panel session as one of the last bits of the conference today. I'm really pleased to be joined by such an amazing group of people on the panel. And I thought it'd be great just to start off before we get into some of your questions, if everyone on the panel could just do a very brief intro as to who you are and who you work for. Just as a reminder, I know some of you we've heard from today already, but just so that we can remind ourselves who you are. So Zoe, can we start with you?
Hi there, I'm Zoe Webster. I'm AI Director at BT in our digital unit, and I spoke earlier this afternoon.
Hello, I'm Petty Officer Shannon Brown, and I work on behalf of the Royal Navy.
Hello, I'm Riya Taylor. I work as a building physics engineer at Mott MacDonald.
Hi, I'm Clare Johnson, and I'm an early talent specialist at Accenture in our recruitment team.
Hello, I'm Kerry Snedden, and I'm the Early Careers Recruitment Manager for WSP.
Thank you very much. So an amazing panel. We've got lots of experience here from lots of different types of companies. And the point of this panel really is to help our audience with this kind of big next step of moving from academia into industry. So your next step into the world of work, how do you make that step? So we thought having this group of people who are working in different companies to give you their insight, both hopefully if you can remember what it was like to first join the world of work, the world of industry, and also from the side of the fence that you're on now, actually on the employer's side, advice you would give. So please do send in your questions and the campus media team will ping them over to me. We've already had quite a few through, which is great. So I'm going to kick off the questions with, what is the best advice you can give for preparing for interviews in person and online? So I'm going to go to Kerry first, if you've got any advice, and then maybe if anyone else has got anything to add, just put your hand up and I'll come to you.
Yeah, I think we've had some really good sessions today, especially around the STAR technique. But one thing that I would add to that is I think it's really, really important that you find out, what type of interview it is. Is it going to be a competency-based, strengths, technical, or is it going to be a combination? Because that will really, really help you prepare. Somebody mentioned today, if it is a competency interview, it's hard to prepare, but have examples. You can always have examples about, tell me about a time you've done this, or give me an example of when you've been in a situation. So as much information you can get. As I've said, the STAR technique was used, so I would have added that. It's really, really important when you are using the STAR technique that you do focus on the action. The interviewer, that is really what they're interested in, and of course then the result. And it's another thing that's really important is make sure you've done your research. I know it might sound like a real obvious thing to do, but the interviewer wants to know what you know about what they've applied for, and also know the subject, your subject, because you're likely to get asked about your course as well. So just some of those salient points, know them really, really well, and that will really help you. And the last but not least, irrespective of whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face, always remember to have eye contact.
Brilliant advice, thank you. Anyone got anything to add to that in terms of advice for preparing for interviews? Yeah, Zoe.
Thank you. Competency-based interviews, you prepare and you think through the competencies they're looking for. Normally they'll say which competence is most important. A trick I found that's quite helpful, rather than having a different example for every possible eventuality, is to pick 2 or 3 major events, major bits of work, major projects that you've been involved in that demonstrate a range of competencies. So I think if I can just remember those and I can tell the story around those and those only, I can demonstrate those competencies, or whether talk about any gaps or anything like that. So I found that quite helpful, rather than trying to tick every box. Just find a few examples and go from there.
Yep.
And just to add to both of those techniques, when we're talking about preparation, don't just be writing them out and rewriting them. Say them out loud, because you don't want to be articulating them out loud for the first time in your interview. You want to make sure you're coming across authentic and confident. So whether it's clicking record on a Zoom meeting to yourself and playing it back, saying to a friend or housemate, hey, is there any chance I can literally just talk at you? That's really powerful, and you'll be surprised how much you just tweak your responses based on actually saying it out loud.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
This might sound really silly, but I remember when I had my telephone interview with Mott MacDonald, obviously it was just over the phone, so no one could see me, and I wore a onesie. So tip to anyone, wear layers, because you will find that the nerves might get the best of you, and then you might start sweating like I did, and it just threw me off everything I prepared for. So just wear layers. That's all I'd say.
I love that advice. That's brilliant. But I think you make a really excellent point, actually. Both of you make a really excellent point, because preparing yourself and your delivery as much as your content, I think you can over-prepare on content and then almost just you're focusing on that and you just want to get it all out and you rush it all out. But actually thinking about your delivery, I love the idea of doing a practice run through with a friend, or even say, can we actually do practice interviews on each other and do that role-playing interview style, take it seriously, practice, or practice in front of the mirror, or exactly like you said, practice on a Zoom call. And I think also preparing yourself in terms of, I mentioned in my talk, do some breathing exercises beforehand, calm yourself down, get in the right mindset. We've heard from loads of employers today, they want you as much as you want them. So go in with a positive mindset, they are there to show that they are good as well as you showing that you are good. So don't go in feeling like it's all the pressure is on you and you've got to perform. It's as much a two-way thing. So enjoy it even, you know. I mean, that might be a little bit taking it a step too far, but try and enjoy it. Okay. We've got loads of great questions coming through. One question here, how does your organisation celebrate diversity? Ooh, we've heard about that a bit today. Anyone want to bring up anything their organisation does to celebrate diversity? Yep.
So briefly at BT, we've got a range of events over the year. So obviously Black History Month at the moment. So there'll be a range of talks and events people can get part of. I went into the office the other day and there was some honey and fruit related to a Jewish festival, which, you know, was really useful to see and, you know, talk to people around about what that meant to them. And, you know, so for me, during the year, there's always something going on which is celebrating diversity.
Love it. Anything to do with your recruitment processes that can support diverse candidates? I'm thinking maybe from a neurodiversity perspective or disability in some way. Maybe not. Yep.
Yeah, I can cover off a couple of those. Accenture, similarly like Zoe, we've got some lovely themed events going on. We are, in our assessment team, we're all trained on supporting neurodiverse applicants and how to look for that in the recruitment process and be really supportive. We've also got a couple of like specific programs that we run. So we have our regular recruitment process, but we also have something called Empowering Female Futures, which is a slightly different route into the business, but designed on really like powering up women to put their best foot forward. So we do a lot of like building on confidence, not being afraid to use I, focusing on your strengths, not what small things we might not be fantastic at, but actually what are you brilliant at and what can you bring forward. So when you come through our recruitment process, we sort of like share with you that suite of things that are sort of available to you.
Brilliant. Love it. Yes.
Yeah,
Kerry.
just one thing that I'll add. So as part of our process at the beginning, one of the reasons that we use this, we use a behavioural assessment, which is specifically very, very good for neurodiverse candidates. So we got rid of our old-fashioned psychometric tests years ago, thank goodness. I don't think I'd ever get through one of those, but the behavioural assessment is all about your behaviour, because obviously that predicts future performance in your role, and the research around it, you know, means that minority groups are not getting excluded. Neurodiverse candidates do better in it than any others. So the business really, really wanted to build on that to ensure that we were giving everybody a chance, because that is really, really important to us at WSP.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Now we're diving into some personal stuff quite quickly here. We've got a question that says, it's about confidence. It says, have any of you suffered with career confidence or lacking in confidence with interviews, and how have you overcome it? Getting straight into some personal. Yes, I love it. Go for it.
I feel
Shannon.
like I should speak. I am the most awkward person at public speaking, as you could probably tell from earlier, but you've just got to chuck yourself into it. I don't like standing in front of people talking. I don't like being pointed out and asked questions, but you've got to put yourself in them situations, and that will only develop you. And I'm still awful at doing them.
Two things. One, you're not awful at all. That never came across. Secondly, don't put yourself down, because none of us knew that at all. Honestly, you come across so well. So it's just demonstrating the point that we all really easily put ourselves down and think negatively, and it's only going to hurt us. It's not going to help us. So thank you for demonstrating that fantastic point. And I love your point about you just have to do it anyway. Of course it's going to feel uncomfortable. Nobody likes being in a situation where you're like totally out of your comfort zone and you're doing something for the first time. I was actually trying to think back to my very first interview after uni, and I think, or even my interview at uni to get my uni position, I was so nervous I could barely talk. Like the sweating, like the redness, the shortness of breath was all there. And it took years of just practicing and keep doing it to get over that. So employers are really, really kind of empathetic to that, I think. Would you agree? Like, we know that people are going to be nervous, and you want to create an environment where people feel comfortable. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Back to you as individuals. Any other people want to share their own personal confidence challenges for either career or interview? Riya, go for it.
I think also, like, right before the moment you have of whether you're public speaking or whether you have the interview, try and distract yourself. I don't like this, very personal again, I don't like to go into an interview, or like even today's event, I didn't want to prepare first thing this morning because I was like, if I've got it on my mind, I'm going to overthink it. I like to think of something else, and then when it happens, it happens. Like, live in the moment a little bit more and distract yourself with things that you enjoy or hobbies that you do.
Yeah, because it relaxes you beforehand rather than stresses you out. And I love that you've learnt that about yourself. And I think we can all learn about ourselves. Everyone will be different, but I love that that's your personal strategy for prep. Brilliant. Anyone else? Yes.
In an interview, if ever I'm feeling a little bit nervous, I always make sure I've got a glass of water, because when an interviewer is asking you the question, they're not judging you on how quickly can you answer something. They want the best answer that you've got. So give yourself that breathing space, like nod, like you've acknowledged and heard the question. Have that sip of water, and that impact of 3 or 4 seconds is so big on actually the response that you then share. And we'd much rather you take your time and give us your best example, not just the first one that comes to your mind, and then you sort of go from A to B to Z and everywhere in between.
Yes, I love that. I think sometimes we can feel like silence is like the worst thing ever, but actually silence and taking a pause and showing your thinking, and even maybe saying, I'm just going to think about that for a sec, is perfectly fine. You don't have to rush into an answer and then get all caught up in your words. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Anyone else on confidence? Yes.
I was just going to add, quite personal. I've always struggled with imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people do. And it's taken me years to have self-belief in myself. It really has. And I've read books. I've listened to numerous TED Talks. There's some fantastic TED Talks out there. So if anybody is struggling with that self-belief, there is a lot of help out there. There's some great books, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Just about around self-confidence, and they really do help.
Yeah, and that you've been proactive to help yourself, knowing that that's not serving you anymore. So what can you do to help yourself? I completely agree. There's so much out there to help now. I love listening to TED Talks about this kind of thing. One of my favorite ones is the Amy Cuddy TED Talk about the power of body language and how things like the power pose can help you. And she actually says, in preparing for interviews, do a power pose for 2 minutes before you go in, because all their research shows it really helps, because our body helps influence how we feel and what emotions we're thinking, and our chemical makeup in our brain. So yes, help yourself by developing yourself personally. Okay. Oh, there's so many good questions coming in. Okay. I'm going to go for this one. How important are transcripts / grades in the hiring process? Ooh, who wants to go first there? Zoe?
I don't look at them, so I would say not very important. I mean, even in some of our job descriptions, we talk about, might have a particular degree or equivalent experience. So, we're opening up to, actually, if you've not got a particular degree, but you've worked in this space and you've accumulated that experience, great. I don't look at scripts or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure our HR department don't either.
Brilliant, very enlightening. Anyone else? Do you know,
so we don't look at A-levels. Our entry requirements are a 2-2. We don't look at GCSEs, A-levels, formal education. We don't even look at CVs. It's an application, behavioural assessment, no CV, no need for CV. Other than apprenticeships, of course, which is what, you require certain qualifications to do the course. No real transcript.
God, how times have moved on, honestly, from I remember going into work, I felt like, and maybe it's just a perception, you feel like the degree class you get is everything. And actually, that's amazing that it's not. We're much more interested in the person and their attitude than whether they got a first or a 2-1. Wow, interesting. Any other, Shannon from the Royal Navy?
So I believe from looking at our Royal Navy website, we have 18 different specialisations in the engineering department that you can join up as. You just have to filter through. If you have, like I said previously, if you have no GCSEs, you can go in at certain levels. The more GCSEs, the more A-levels you do have, yes, they do take into account. We are still an application, but you will need to put what qualifications you have. You have to pass an aptitude, again, which will assess what department you can go into within the Royal Navy, but it's we still utilise GCSEs and A-levels and degrees, unfortunately.
I was going to say, thank you. And there are always going to be those roles where a particular specialty or qualification, but there is no. It's never harmful, I don't think, to try it anyway, to either find the other route, which might allow you in, or just to check in and just say, look, I don't have this particular thing that's stated on your website, but what I do have is the following, can we talk? So I think it's worth doing that.
And actually that brings me on to another point, which I was going to bring up. We haven't had a question exactly on it, but in terms of the requirements listed for a job, there's anecdotal evidence that says women do not apply unless they meet 100% of the criteria, and men will apply if they meet, 80%, and you just take a punt and go for it. So what would your advice be around that? Again, leading on from what you said, Zoe, if you don't quite meet all the criteria, but you love the idea of the job, maybe how do you actually go about requesting or applying for that job if you don't meet all the criteria? Should we go with Claire? Yep.
Sure. I think it does depend on the type of organisation that you're applying to, the level of flexibility that there will be there. Like some of them are absolute requirements and there's no getting past that. But for many, there is that flexibility. I think where there's the opportunity to do a cover letter, I know how laborious it can be writing cover letter after cover letter, but it really is something that can stand you out. So if you're missing something, but you can take the time to tailor that application and really enhance and shine a spotlight on those brilliant additional skills that you do bring, and acknowledge the things that you might not have but your eagerness to learn, that can go so far. I also think, if you've got your heart set on a certain career, you maybe don't get the degree classification that you need to go in at that graduate level. It's not a no, it's just a not right now. What else can you go out? What other experiences? What other entries to that business are there? Because I've definitely found, and I'm sure lots of these women here will have found, once you're in, the mobility within a business is so fluid. It's just about getting that foot in the door. So don't beat yourself up if it's a closed door. It's never a closed door forever for that organisation. It's just not right at that moment for whatever reason.
Yeah. Great advice, thank you. Really good advice. Okay, we've had another question in. What is the number one skill that you recommend undergraduate students develop during their studies? So maybe in addition to what they're doing academically, what's the number one skill that you would recommend undergraduate students develop? Who wants to go first? Riya.
I think I'd say time management.
Oh, good one.
Especially if you moved away from home for university, you got to manage your time, doing studying, trying to attend lectures, trying to cook for yourself, going out, your social life, and then fitting in applications as well. That to me was such a struggle. I remember September, it was dissertation period and it was beginning of applications, and the amount of spreadsheets I had was insane, but it helped so much. Having your colour coding, I would print out calendars, have them stuck up all against my wall just for time management, so I had everything literally in front of me to see. It does mean sometimes you have to sleep for about 4 hours, but it does pay off. And put yourself first at the end of the day. Health does come first, but time management for sure.
And having that time management so that there's only so many hours in the day. Prioritization is key. So as part of time management, how do you prioritize what it is you're going to do? I love that. And that's also a great thing that you can then bring up in interview, because you might get a question around that. So you can say how you managed your dissertation and all the applications, et cetera, et cetera. Anyone else? What skills do you think?
I would say communication. Obviously, communication gets us through a lot of things, but in fact, most things, and it isn't something that anybody can take for granted, because it does take time to communicate well, and I think once you've mastered it, obviously you can always improve. But even now, I reference the book if I'm writing an email to somebody important, to make sure I lay it out in the right context so it gets read. So, I think that's really, really important. It's important for your study, it's important for your applications, it's important for your interviewing, it's important when you start your job as well. So
absolutely, communication is key, as they say. Anyone got any more skills? And also I'd love to hear your views on how you can develop your communication skills as well.
One skill I'd add that probably underpins those two is self-awareness. So the more you know yourself, like the things that trigger you, the things that get you excited, the things that actually send you in a spin if they don't go right, the more self-aware you are, the more you can be in control of that. Self-awareness links into communication as well. Like if you can read a room, if you can reflect and judge like how you are in a certain space, it makes you so much more effective. If you know that without structure and you know, things printed on your wall, you're chaotic and your brilliant strengths are actually lost because your organisation isn't there. It all comes back to that self-awareness. So I think the quicker you can get to know yourself, it helps you put your best foot forward. So whether that's doing personality quizzes or getting feedback, inviting feedback, that would be my sort of go-to.
Love that. So much in that answer. Feedback, I would say 100% is so important. It can be scary to ask for feedback, but you can ask for feedback from anyone around you, your lecturers, you know, your project supervisor, your friends even, and get them to reflect back to you so that you're kind of holding the mirror up to yourself is quite a painful thing to do maybe sometimes. So ask them to be honest and accept it with an open mind. But I completely agree. Getting feedback and raising self-awareness is so important, and that does underpin communication. Anyone got any more tips on developing communication skills? Because I agree that is so important. I'm going to go, yes, Shannon, thank you.
Practice. Yes. Like I say, I don't like doing it. I still don't like doing it. But no matter what I do, I still get that fear, but I just, again, have to go for it. If you're unsure and you think that you're not going to be able to speak or you're going to stall, you just got to practice. My worst habit is I have to write everything down what I'm trying to say, and then halfway through it I'll decide that I don't want to say that, and then I stall.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. Practice, 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 and it will get easier. It will feel so painful to begin with. And I really think this is an important thing linking into networking, which was going to be a skill I was going to say is really important for undergrads to develop, because building your network and connecting in with people that can open doors for you. You still have to walk through that door, but they can open doors for you is so valuable, but you can't network unless you can communicate. Even just today in the breaks we've had, I've had students coming up to me and saying, hi. I love that. That is like, it can be uncomfortable, but just do it anyway. And you never know where that will take you. So yes, thank you. Practice, step out your comfort zone, do the things that scare you. It will get easier. Absolutely. Oh, such good questions. Okay. Oh, this links into this one. Have you any advice about approaching people on LinkedIn when asking about work opportunities or experience opportunities? Yep, Claire? I see you're nodding.
Yeah. But yeah, my LinkedIn inbox, sometimes I wish some of the messages were a little bit more tailored. There's nothing worse than telling that, seeing that someone has taken that step and thought, I am going to connect to the recruiter. I've been told that's a great thing to do. But getting a message like, hi, can you tell me more about Accenture? Our website is, we pay a lot of money to have a really, well, as we all do, to have a really informative website on there. There's so much, like a day in the life of an analyst. Go away, see what it is about the business that you like, or make sure you've reviewed it, and then come with a specific question or a reflection, or just even why you want to connect. Something that makes you either stand out or there's an action that comes out of it. That's me personally on LinkedIn. I just think it's a bit of a missed opportunity if it's something generic, because realistically I don't have the opportunity to reply to all of them. Or even if you just want to connect just to be in someone's network, that's fine. We're always posting various opportunities, and we know you'll see them. That's fine too. That is a subtle way of networking as well, just being part of those networks you want to be in.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yes, Riya.
I think I'm not from the talent side of career perspective. Sorry, words aren't working. But when I started looking for roles, I would look for people who had those specific roles at the companies that I was looking at, and kind of ask them what a day in a life is for them, so you could kind of understand what their role actually meant. Because I think a lot of the time when you hear these titles, they kind of drown you out, especially when you've done a degree in one thing and you see that you could go into 1,000,001 different things. Sometimes you do really need it dumbed down for you. So I think if you're looking on LinkedIn, look for the people whose roles you want as well, so you can actually talk to them personally. And that way, talking to them, you will have a tailored approach because you have something in common and you're not just being quite vague and just creating the connection just to have the connection as such.
Yeah. definitely. So would you say that it's worth people sort of utilising LinkedIn as a tool? I mean, do you find that, Zoe? Do people contact you on LinkedIn, or do you use LinkedIn for networking and things like that?
I certainly use it for networking, but I think it's worth bearing in mind that, and I welcome, people getting in contact, and I respond if I can. But, I've got a bunch of emails I need to get through. I've got other channels that people are. So I think it's just worth bearing in mind that it's not the only channel someone's working on. So being as tailored and focused as possible, maybe linking to, if you've got common contacts, or if there's some other thing you've got in common, bring that out, or say be specific about what it is that's interesting to you. So just kind of recognise that it's not the only channel someone's working with.
Very much. Okay, we've got a question here. So from Jess, for a civil engineering placement, is there any possibility of doing this in an office abroad? If so, how can I apply? So that sounds very, very specific. I don't know if anybody is relevant, if that's relevant to any of you for a very specific question there, or whether maybe you just want to comment on opportunities to work abroad for grads. Riya, yeah.
I know at Mott MacDonald, if you want to apply straight away to work abroad, Mott MacDonald is a global company. You can look for offices in different regions and apply directly towards them. How their graduate schemes work may be slightly different to how they work in the UK. But as soon as you start your application for a UK team, as long as you make it aware that, you want to work abroad at some point, your manager will keep that in mind at all points, and the opportunity to work abroad is likely to happen because of the connections abroad.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's exactly the same for us. If somebody wanted to outright work overseas straight away, we would just direct them to that office website. But obviously, we do have lots of people that come in, like we all do, and start in the UK and then move all over the place or change the role. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities with the global companies.
Brilliant. We've got a question about sort of timing for graduate schemes. So it said, how many years after graduation can I still apply for a graduate scheme? I graduated during the pandemic and struggled to find a graduate scheme.
Certainly for Accenture and other graduate employers I've worked for, we don't have a limit. So if sometimes if you have got a couple of years post-study under your belt, that sometimes enhances your application. And just on the point of that pandemic, certainly from speaking to lots of students, I know you can maybe feel that you did have a strange university experience, you've missed out on something, but try not to focus on what wasn't available to you during that time. Actually, what did you develop during those couple of years of the pandemic that mean actually you're ready to roll in this virtual world we work in? You had to stop going to lectures in person and you became a whiz at, MS Teams or Zoom. Well, actually 95% of the meetings I have are in the virtual space. So when you're going forward and making those applications a couple of years post-pandemic, take that time to reflect, that self-awareness, I love a bit of that. But just think, those things that you saw as a frustration, that resilience you took, how can you make that really work for you in that application? So don't see it as something that's going to work against you. Those couple of years out of university could strengthen your application.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a really good point in terms of how to answer any questions in an interview, is look for the ways that you can turn situations into opportunities for yourself. So, people want to work with people who can see that there's a way forward, that there's an answer to a problem. And you might not have that answer, but you can see that there's a path. And, it's kind of looking at what is your problem-solving approach. So to just talk about problems is not going to get you very well through your interview. So I would say definitely that, especially for the pandemic, but also for other things as well. Problems that you faced, we've all come across challenges. How can you turn that into a problem-solving opportunity? Super. Okay, fantastic. There's a question about mentoring. Someone has said, I would love to find a mentor. Do you have any tips on finding good mentors? On mentoring. I suppose this could be internal to your organisation or external. Sorry?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think how it works, but I mean, I've mentored a couple of people, and I've got other mentees. So I think finding a good one is it really ties back to the point Claire was making about self-awareness. I think, understand what it is, what gaps you might have, what different perspectives you'd like to explore, and focus on finding people who could help fulfill those, those needs or meet those gaps. I think finding someone who's just like you, could be helpful because you can maybe learn from their path. But I think more useful is to find someone who just looks at things differently, who's got skills in a different area that you want to enhance, and focus on that. And again, reach out through your networks to find out and start asking people. I think being open and honest, I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for a coach. Has anyone got any recommendations? There are schemes that we're part of at BT that help people find mentors, so kind of find out more about those. But also actually something we've been doing recently, it ties into that diversity and inclusion point, is reverse mentoring. So I prefer to call a mentor rather than reverse mentor, but someone from a different ethnic background to me, and I could learn so much more about their perspectives, and that was really helpful. So there are different types of mentoring schemes as well that we can explore, but have that self-awareness and find someone who can help plug those gaps.
Thank you. Anyone else on any mentoring points at all?
I was just thinking probably some of the institutions, for engineers, if you're a member of them, they may have lists of volunteer mentors because, usually when you qualify and you get your chartership, you usually want to help everybody else get to where you've got to as well. So they're always worth a place to check, I would say.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think businesses are quite good for having those formal mentoring things in place, but I know that sometimes that can make it feel quite formal and scary. I know definitely my best mentors are in like a more informal capacity, so there may be like friends or colleagues I've met across the year, and for whatever reason I really respect them, or we've got that mutual appreciation, and having that person where if I do need someone to cheerlead me, like when I was applying to Accenture, for example, I had this moment of like, oh gosh, and I just knowing I had that network of like people, I could reach out to one or two of them and then just like reinforce, actually, no, this is why you'd be great for the role, or this is why it's a good next step for you, and just reassuring you. That sort of like informal mentorship I found like the most personally useful.
Yeah. That's really, really helpful. And I know, like you're saying about institutions, like there will be many institutions that have the option of helping to match you with a mentor if you're not quite sure who to ask to be your mentor. And that can be maybe something you're uncomfortable doing. But, things like the Women's Engineering Society have a mentoring scheme. I'm pretty sure WISE, so Women in Science and Engineering, have. So you can find ways of connecting yourself into a sort of mentoring community. Brilliant. Okay, we've got so many questions. Oh gosh, where to go next? Okay, so I think we're going to ask this one next because it's kind of asking your personal experience again. So it's about can you remember back to your first 6 months of being a graduate, and what would you do differently? Maybe just thinking back to your early career. Is there anything you would do differently in your early career?
Claire, I could go. I think I'd have boundaries, as like simple as that sounds, because I am naturally a really positive person, really keen, like I want to do everything, get involved in everything, which is exactly what I did in the first 6 months of my grad scheme, and I was burnt out. So I think knowing the difference between putting your best foot forward, saying, yes, I'm really keen to get involved. I wasn't necessarily keen to like impress and be like, look at me. It was just like, I want to, like a little puppy, I want to get involved in everything. But actually, be like, it's maybe not always the best thing to do everything. So maybe just thinking about what's for now and what can maybe wait for a little bit later down the line would be my reflection.
Absolutely, love that. Shannon?
I don't really feel like I have a true story to say, because we do ours within a training establishment. So what people spend years doing for a full degree, I only got a foundation degree within mine, but I've done that over a year. So I was purely stuck at HMS Sultan for a full year, doing the Freshers Week and living life. But it's just our every day, and then we move straight onto another part of our course where we go into our training. So where we've got the academics, we then go on to the hands-on stuff. So I'd done 10 weeks of fitting and turning. So that to me was standing at a lathe for 10 weeks, turning bits of metal down for projects at the end, which could become our final pieces. But like I was saying previously, I'm now on my top up, which I don't think I need to do now, listening to new jobs outside. Shall I finish this degree? But I'm doing that as a distance learning with a few of the guys from the office, because we've just decided that now is the time. But I'm about to join a new ship, so we don't get the same thrill of going to the seminars. This is my first time in ever being in a university properly, officially, because I never went to my graduation for my foundation degree.
Oh, wow.
I was at sea, I was away, I was deployed, so it was a case of, here you go, you're qualified, bye.
Wow. It's a very different life.
So I can't really comment. Apologies.
No worries, no worries. No, so, and another question, sort of along a similar line, so I know we're coming to the end of our question time, so I want to maybe finish on this one. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently? Finishing on a very big question there. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently? Maybe trying to link it into your job career, and like the career path you've taken or the decisions you made, maybe for your own self-development, things like that. So what, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently? I'm going to go to each of you, actually, starting with Zoe.
Sure. It's a really tricky question. I probably would say I would have used my network more, tried to develop that earlier. A bit like you said you were a recovering wallflower, I'm quite similar. And networking is not something that comes very easily to me. But I wish I'd kind of pushed that a bit earlier. And so rather than kind of, it's, depending on what I know, a little bit more of who I know and linking in, particularly the kind of peer learning, those kind of informal mentoring, doing that earlier, particularly in a male-dominated space as well. Doing that a bit earlier, I think I would have done.
And Shannon, briefly to you, Shannon, if you could do anything differently, what would it be? Feel free to say, no, nothing, I'm perfect.
So if I'm perfectly honest, I understand this is aimed at university, but I wouldn't join the military until I was 18 and maybe try to get some more grade. Well, I got GCSEs, but try and get an A level so that when I come back to doing the learning environment, I wasn't out of it for so long.
Brilliant, yeah. And Riya, how about you?
I think I'd say take my time with it. I went straight from a bachelor's to working, and yeah, I took some time off to travel a little bit, but I think I should have taken off a little bit longer, maybe got literally just work retail or something for a bit and thought about what I wanted to do. I know that's not exactly the best message to get across, but you do have time. I know everyone will be pressuring you in fairs and in all these events to, okay, you need to apply for this, you need to do that, you need an internship. If you don't, you're still going to do absolutely fine.
Yeah, I love that. Life's a marathon, not a sprint. Yes, Claire.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think skills are just so transferable. So even I had 2 gap years, for full disclosure, and worked in a bit of retail and had a great time. But it gave me some skills that did get me into the next thing. I think I probably would have engaged with the career side of things more at university. So I didn't attend. It's the irony that I'm now a graduate recruiter, but I didn't attend any careers fairs, didn't go to my career service. I was just like, I'll get university done and then I'll think about that. It's a future Claire problem. But what it meant was actually I probably missed out on realising some of my own potential at the time, because I just thought, oh, I'm Claire from Birmingham, my parents didn't go to uni, I'll just figure it out once I'm back home. But I think if I'd have come to some sessions like this or had a chat with the careers counsellor, they'd have said that some of those part-time jobs I'd had for years or some of the experiences I'd had, actually how transferable they were into some of these businesses that I had no idea of. So the fact you're here today and listening, well done, you've took that that first step.
Fantastic. And Kerry, over to you.
I would have worked harder at school. It isn't that I didn't have the brain to, but I was just intent on having fun. A bit older and etc. But and to have experienced more really. So I had more of a idea of what I'd like to do. I'd love to be an engineer. Not going to do that now. I know it's never too late, but for an engineer it probably is. But yeah, there's just so much opportunity out there, isn't there, that we're not aware of. So I definitely would do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to the panel, honestly, for all your insight and also for your sharing your personal stories, because I think that is the thing that is so useful. At the end of the day, we're all people and we all have areas in our lives that we're struggling with. We all have our insecurities, but we all have our strengths. And so to hear your advice about that next step into career for the students, as well as some of your personal stories about how you've overcome challenges or what you might do differently, has been so, so helpful. Thank you. So thank you very much from the panel. A final word I would just say is preparing for the next step. Just believe in yourself, feel like you deserve this, and go for things that you feel are stretch opportunities, because you'll surprise yourself what you can achieve. So thank you very much to the panel, and back to Amanda.
That was fantastic, and that flew. I can't believe how quickly that session went, and we didn't manage to get through all of your questions, but I know there were other employers in the chat answering questions as they came in as well, so thank you to those employers who were joining virtually. And thank you so much to you guys for sharing everything. There's so many gems there in terms of advice. I want to just round up now, really. Right from the start of today's sessions, where Alex mentioned that only 16% of women work in engineering. It is only 16% of women that work in engineering now, but you are that difference. And moving forward with any one of the organisations that offer the opportunity to be a role model to younger years will equip you with the confidence to empower younger people to make change, be a change maker, and get more young people, young girls into STEM. Coincidentally, 6 years ago, when we first started running this event, it was only 12% of women were in engineering. So although it's going up, it is going up slowly, it is going up. It's going up in the right direction. Another gem that I've made a mark down here for was always ask for feedback. I think that is so vital, and it doesn't have to be in an interview scenario. So you can ask anyone along your journey for feedback. It might be your lecturer. It might be careers guidance at university. It might be that you're doing an industrial placement and you're wanting feedback on every stage. Don't be afraid to ask for that feedback. Going to the LinkedIn, if you're not sure how to connect with somebody, and rather than just connecting, it's really great to follow them. Lots of the early talent people at organisations, especially the ones here today, you can follow their companies, but you can follow the early talent team as well, because they will be posting as and when opportunities are arriving. Maybe they've got some virtual or in-person workshops as well that you can attend, so follow. And then just go for it. So just to echo what Alex mentioned about how as women if we don't feel that we tick 100% of the boxes on an application, and it might not be an application for a job, it could be an application for something else, don't let that stop you. Just go for it. You're never expected to know everything at this stage, and there is so much more you are going to learn along the way. You are enough, and it's really important to just be yourself. And the final takeaway for me as well is breathe. I loved that. Just breathe. So just as an end note, I want to reiterate the competition. Thank you so much to everybody who's already entered. Just again, to recap for anybody who is joining us, this is in partnership with STEMAZING. There are 6 opportunities to join the 4-month programme. And it is all about teaching you how to shine as a visible role model, working with young people, going into schools, running workshops. What you need to do to enter is simple. Tell us why you want to take the course. Tell us what you're studying at university, when you finish, and then email with the subject heading competition to hello@campusmedia.co.uk. More information about today's employers and partners can be found on the Campus Media Women in Engineering and Technology 2022 tab, which is in the chat now, I believe. To enter the competition, you've got until the 16th of October. And the course doesn't start until March with approximately 2 hours per week commitment, so easily to work around your studies. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has given their time today to come and share their advice, their career journey with you, insights into their organisations, because they ultimately, going back to what we said at the start, they are looking to attract you, more women, into their organisations or empower you to go forward and be a change maker. Work in a STEM industry when you've finished your qualifications. A huge thank you to all of our partners, LSBU for hosting us here in the London Hub, it's fabulous. A massive thank you to all of the academics. So just to give you an idea, we have been communicating over the last 3 months with about 110 universities across the UK, all of their engineering and technology faculties, and they've all brilliantly communicated this event so to make it as inclusive and accessible for so many of you to join and take part. Everything will be recorded today. So those of you who have registered will receive an on-demand link to all of today's sessions. I'm personally, there's quite a few on there that I'd like to listen back to as well. Again, there's some really great gems of advice. So take the time, go back over it as well, watch it on demand. So if you haven't registered and you've been streaming the event from the Campus Media website, great. If you would like to connect with today's speakers and employers, please register. It takes a minute to register, and that means that they can communicate with you and reach out to you via email post-event. And that is it. That is a wrap. We are finally at the end of an amazing Women in Engineering and Technology 2022 session. Thank you again for taking part. We love to hear your feedback and success stories. So please tell us your feedback and keep in touch. Let us know how you get on in your career. Good luck with the rest of your studies. Good luck in your future career.